Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slot One Super Podcast. We are back once again for another lovely episode 34. Man, every time, I swear, I'm like always impressed, and I'm like, wow, so high, number go up,
right?
break go burr.
It's like we got past a certain number, and now every episode, it's like, look at the look
I
at the new
every
number.
episode, I'm like, holy cow, dude, we're cooking, baby.
Hey man, 34 weeks is crazy. That is
That is pretty crazy.
That's like, imagine like in 20 weeks we'll be at 52.
That is true. That is true.
I know, over half the year.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for the gifted memberships in chat, by the way. And thank you for coming to the stream. Of course, before I can't even introduce myself yet. Thank you, everybody. I was just going to say, we'll say it right now, I guess. Just a quick reminder, if you want to support the podcast, if you have any questions, comments, or shout outs, we'll read all donations and super chats at the end of the show. And of course, we'll shout you out for the gifted memberships as well. But thank you for that. But I am Dokkan Assets. Hello. And I am joined by Minato's Flash and Mass Ningen to my left. Haha, I got it this time.
Hello. Hi.
Yo, how's
For
it
the
going,
first time.
everyone?
Did you say for the first time?
For the first time, I got it right. Like,
yeah.
The direction that everybody is, because I
Yeah,
swear that was a running bit for the while that we always just like mess that up.
After 34 weeks. Good job, man.
After
Hell
34 weeks,
Let's
I
go.
did it. Let's go, baby. Well, thank you everybody for coming through. Obviously, we have a good episode for you today. Today we are going to be talking about it's funny because I always feel like every time we have an episode where like there's not a crazy amount to talk about today, but there's still stuff to talk about. We end up talking about for like, you know, a fat minute about everything. So we'll see. Yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, today's episode, of course, is mainly going to be about the boy Ginyu and some other shenanigans that we got going on. So let's go ahead and hop into things here. Before we get into stuff over on JP, though, we are going to go through the global shenanigans first. Of course, right, we had two EZAs come to global, one of which, ironically enough, we talked about like literally last week, like quite literally in the last episode. Which of course was EZA Gotenks. So it was cool to see that they brought that over. I did actually want to talk about that in terms of like I thought that them bringing that over so quickly was pretty interesting. But the other EZA was of course the boy Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and we'll get to him in a little bit. Personally, that's my goat right there. So I was very excited to see him finally come to global, because I know there's a little bit of like, is he gonna be there in the beginning of the celebration, because he wasn't, shown off initially. But with Gotenks, right? So I thought that this was really interesting, to be honest with you, because obviously, right now for global, they are in the in the middle rather of the Super Saiyan 3 Goku Hyrudagon celebration. So it felt a little bit strange when I saw them announce Gotenks on global. It's the type of thing where it's like, okay, well, we're in the middle of the sync, so I guess it makes sense that they bring some content over, but like, what is the particular reason they decided to bring him over? Like, do I just not understand? I was a little bit confused when I saw that. I'm glad because it's just more content, but what's up?
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. I thought you said you knew.
So no, the idea was that we thought that the Topo celebration was going to be just like a guide, and he was going to be on like some...
You're funny.
Yeah, it was just going to be on some filler banner, but that would have been with them bringing the sub EZAs out. No, they weren't in the data download. The last data download before last night's, they did update their like super attack scripts, which they usually do when there's going to be an EZA for those characters. So they updated that, but they didn't put the EZAs in the data. I don't know. Like, is it going to be like next week on like Monday or Tuesday, they just come out right before Golden Week and Global.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see that happening. But it's not like impossible. Like if Golden Week drops on the 25th and then Global just gets those EZAs on like the 22nd, 23rd with Tech Gotenks maybe, but otherwise it just like I don't know why they would bring this banner out other than not using all the other characters.
Yeah, because that's the weird thing, right? Is it's like the Ink Gotenks EZA coming is one thing. But yeah, the fact that they brought that support banner that has all the other EZA characters and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks on it as well.
Personally, I think they could still EZA because the banner does last until the 12th, right? If I'm not mistaken. Let me take a look here.
Once I get out of this World Tournament run, I could have a look at the news. But...
Or the second, okay. The banner lasts until the 2nd on Global.
Always on baby.
Theoretically, they could drop the EZA. Like, they could drop them next week before Golden Week. It's not, like, impossible to think about that.
Yeah.
They could just drop them with Tech Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, right? And just group them all together. We'll see. We'll see what they do. Because obviously there will be a data download next week for the Golden Week characters. But...
Yep.
In terms of Ink Gotenks himself, he's good.
Yeah, it seems the thing that's weird is obviously like, we had the maintenance, which had a data download. They put in a bunch of like untranslated assets and stuff from the anniversary and Frieza celebration and all that. So nothing like particularly important. So after the maintenance, there wasn't any new information because of course we were hoping to see maybe like Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks or the other EZAs like in the files, and they weren't there. So obviously, we have no idea what's going on with that. In terms of the why the Int Gotenks one specifically has come to Global early, it obviously seems very strange because it's a piece of content from the Topo celebration that's now been moved somewhere else, which means when Topo does come out on Global, that's just a piece of content from his celebration that we won't get, which makes his celebration then have less content in it. And of course, people have been saying about like, maybe he's going to come out right before the sync on like a sync banner or something, or they're going to squish a whole bunch of stuff together, which would then make sense for them to have taken some of the stuff out. But to be honest, the one theory that I have seen, which I thought probably makes sense is, and I know we're going to talk about this later when we talk about Golden Week, because it ties into something that Minato mentioned before we started recording. But a lot of people are thinking or hoping or whatever that the Golden Week could be Majin Buu Saga related, and because this guy EZA'd on JP and was a dual Dokkan Fest with the Tech Exchange Buu, but they didn't EZA him, I've seen a lot of people speculate that if Golden Week is Buu Saga, they're going to EZA the Tech Exchange Buu as part of the Golden Week. And then obviously that means that means that both versions would have both of them EZA'd, because otherwise if they didn't bring out Gotenks early on Global would only get the Tech Buu EZA and then be waiting for the Gotenks one. So
that's some sound logic.
I can
honestly.
kind of see that, but the thing that is weird to me about the whole thing is it kind of reminds me of when they brought the Gammas out on Global like 1 week later. Like this came out, I checked the dates on the wiki for it when I made one of my videos, but this came out, this Int Gotenks EZA, 10 days after it came out on JP. So when it's the case of like 10 days, why didn't they just bring it out at the same time on both versions? Like why wait 10 days? If they're going to bring it to Global early, it seems weird to wait at all, really. Like it's kind of an arbitrary, like, oh, we'll wait 10 days and then Global can have it. It seems kind of...
Sounds like shout out to Grand Cross Global where they're like a week behind JP.
Yeah, it is kind of odd. Yeah, and that's what they did with the Gammas. Yeah, like
exactly. And there's no reason like why the Gammas didn't come out. Why they could have just come out at the same time, but they waited 1 week, which is just weird. Like it's nice when stuff comes to Global earlier than the normal wait, but if it's going to be the space of like a week, it's like why not just do it at the same time?
I thought of something right now. I just thought of something. Right? So the Topo celebration on Global would be in July, right? If things go accordingly, it would be in like July because
it'd be like end of July, start of August, right?
Right before Worldwide, right? So if that's the case, there is the Peppy Gals EZN banner that comes out right before Worldwide and GP. This year, those EZAs are going to be Margarita and Kiawe, which are Universe Survival Saga EZAs.
Yep.
And otherwise, those characters would be
That's a good idea.
In limbo. I just thought about it. Those characters would be in limbo. The EZAs are global. Or they'd be returning on a different day. What if they move the Ink Gotenks EZA up and then Japan Global right before anniversary at the same time, or not anniversary, right before Worldwide at the same time, get those peak out EZAs and that EZA banner that can come up, because then Margarita is also a Universe 11 character for Topo and another Universe Survival Saga character, and then it could kind of fit into the theme a little, even though it's more like special pose.
Yeah,
maybe that's something they could do, and that's why they moved Ink Gotenks up here, so that they could fit that at the same time, and they want to have like too many EZs in their mind.
Yeah, because they basically moved up one Extreme Z battle, but then replaced it with a different one for global. So that kind of makes sense. Yeah,
that's my thought. I just literally thought about right now.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That is interesting.
But yeah, I mean,
I could definitely see it.
Yeah, in terms of the unit himself, like obviously he did his EZA earlier, nice and easy. Although 30 stage EZAs, we all love those. But,
let's go.
But yeah, Gotenks seems pretty good. I haven't been able to try out much other than just doing the initial showcase, because obviously World Tournament is on global, which we'll be talking about in a bit. But yeah, he seems good. I know the comparisons were being made when he came out, because she's kind of like the gold standard now, so every EZA will get ranked up against Kefla.
Yep.
I definitely don't think he's as good as her. It's really nice that he doesn't have a lot of the conditions. Like, you don't have to pick up a certain number of orbs or anything like that. He just gets the dodge, he gets the additional supers or chance to additional, depending which form he's in. But the major difference is, of course, like, he just doesn't hit anywhere near as hard as her, especially right from the start. And by the time he goes Super Saiyan 3 and is then dropping like 15, 16 million attack stats, you're on like turn 7. So by then, like, Kefla's already up to like 20 to like 25 million potentially. So I don't think he's quite as good as her, but that's not to say that he's not great, right? Because she's like probably the best EZA TUR at the moment. So not being as good as her isn't a major like downside necessarily.
I mean, he's easily a number 2 though.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he's certainly better than some of the other ones that we've seen, like, recently as well. So, yeah, I would say he's in the same, like, league as her when it comes to EZAs actually being good. Then, yeah, he definitely got a solid one. So it's nice to have it early on global, especially because of one of the things I definitely want to do for a video now that we have both him and Kefla is, of course, like, the Saiyan Day Vegeta, like, that Super Saiyans team just keeps getting buffs. And you'll be able to run Kefla and Gotenks like on that team, which I think will be quite fun. So yeah, it's definitely very nice to have gotten him early, even if it's a bit strange. The one thing I will complain about, which, we're going to talk about the tournament in more detail in a bit. I have no idea why they decided to release 2 Extreme Z battles at the same time as the World Tournament started. Because we talked about this on the stream that I did earlier today, but like, all the rest of this week, we had like the Sandland thing, like the little mini collab started on like Monday or Tuesday. But other than dropping an item and submissions, that wasn't really any actual content. So pretty much this entire week, there's been no actual new content. But then they just dropped everything on like today, on the Friday. It's like, we could have had the EZAs yesterday, could have had like the new Extreme Super Battle Road stage on the Wednesday, like, for example. But everything came out today all at the same time. So I know a bunch of people...
That's like old Dokkan. Like,
I know,
they
old school
usually
Dokkan, yeah.
out. Right.
It's like, I know a bunch of people who are regulars, like, I know, shout out to Bringer in the chat, but people who are like those people who do grind the World Tournament, like, those people just haven't done those EZAs yet and like won't be doing them until Monday, because they're just doing the World Tournament until the World Tournament is over. So very odd to drop those today, especially when, like I say, the last couple of days in a row, there has been nothing. So it was like the perfect opportunity to fill that space by dropping those events. But it is what it is. So Gotenks is fun. It's nice to have him on global, and yeah, hopefully we'll see soon whether that was in any way connected to Golden Week or if it has something to do with other shenanigans upcoming in the future. So
absolutely, yeah, I hope that it does. I mean, it would be cool to see if they do this again, where, like, they bring some content forward, because obviously you know, they could definitely do that, and I'm sure that they probably will do some of it, like even besides like something that might be like a literal like sync banner or something, you know. I think that probably some content will end up coming sooner. So it'll be interesting to see if that will like clue us in to anything that's coming up. Because obviously, like at the moment, right? It's kind of an interesting thing, because realistically that can only happen during this specific time period with the sync, because obviously once the sync happens, everything will just be like we're doing it together basically. But right now, if some of that happens, right, it's kind of like, ooh, I wonder what could be coming next. So we'll have to we'll have to see if that actually amounts to anything. But time to talk about my GOAT, baby. Put that bad boy up on the screen. Super Saiyan 3 Goku, obviously the Tech LR.
There he is.
Finally coming over to Global Dokkan. Like I mentioned before, I know that this was a little bit of a worry for some people, because this guy initially wasn't shown off in the celebration details. And I know that people were like, uh-oh, is he not coming right now? And thankfully he just appeared later. I swear that happens like all the time, where like for Global, it's like, oh, we're not getting an EZA.
Was it that like, I'm trying to think back, it wasn't the, was it like when we had the first shared Golden Week, when it was the GT Super Saiyans, and like JP had the news about the Super Saiyan 4s, like the 2-year anniversary ones, had their EZAs like in the news straight away from day one, but Global didn't. And so then everyone was like, oh, Global's not getting them. And then they appeared in the news like 2 days later or something. Like,
well, remember that it was the same on GP with this Goku, where he just wasn't in the news until right at the end. Like we got past New Year's, and then people are still speculating, oh, does this mean Tech Goku gets his EZA? Because
he was on the image, wasn't he? I remember.
So it was like a long time, but then it come on to like what, the 12th? Like it was crazy that they took so long to bring that guy out. I don't know what they're doing.
They really drawn it out. But yeah, so obviously the boy is now on Global. So now finally the oldest unit that didn't have an EZA in terms of the big boys finally has his EZA, which is very, very nice to see. Now, obviously, it's kind of interesting too, because of course, with him being there, it's basically just like you can really start to kind of get into some of the, like, I don't want to say newer characters, because like calling a character from 2019 new definitely isn't like true. But it's interesting because obviously now that it's like we're finally done with like the characters who like really, really, really need an EZA, right? In terms of just like how old they are. You know, it's cool that now we can start getting into some of these, you know, more juicy picks. So, obviously, right, with this guy coming out on Global, he is very, very good, and I have definitely used him on JP. I actually, like, legitimately shed a tear when I saw him crack those ridiculous numbers for the first time, because, you know, obviously, back in the day, right, this guy was such a beast when he came out, and he was so insane. I remember I had him, and I had him at 55%, and I was, like, literally like screaming and throwing my phone at the numbers that he was putting out, because at the time it was like unprecedented.
He was the hardest hitting unit in the game, wasn't he, when he came out?
Easily. Easily. And I remember too, obviously even back then I loved Super Saiyan 3, so something for this guy was a lot of fun when he came out. But obviously being the global player, you now have had the opportunity to you know, kind of indulge. So what are your thoughts, my friend?
I know we talked about him when he came out on JP. I did try him out when he came out on JP, and it's weird, my opinion of him I think has like soured over time, because I've been waiting for him to come to Global, because I really liked the unit. And when I first did his like first showcase on JP, it's like you get his passive built up, you see that first like big 18 key super, and it's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Like he's hitting like, you know, 23 mil or something like that. But then when you think about it in like the grand scheme of things, with the way his passive works, you really get like when you do his 18 key super for the first time, you get like the action break, and I think you might get another buff as well. I can't remember. So like the first time you use it is like the big important one, and he builds up his passive. He builds up extra attack by attacking like multiple times, or by supering multiple times. And then, of course, he has the thing where he has damage reduction, which he loses if you do the 18 key super, but keeps if he does the 12 key super. So basically, the strategy with him, if you want to use him to his most effectiveness, I think, is that you get him to do 3 12 key supers, that fully builds up his passive, and then you use his 18 key super. But the problem is, if you don't get any additionals, then it just means for his first 3 appearances, you're just doing the 12 key super, which I think on the first turn, he only got like a 4 million attack stat or something. So it's like, you're essentially wasting 3 turns where he's not really doing anything. And then he does the 22 or 23, 24, you know, with support it's even higher, right? Does the 1 big attack stat, but then he loses his damage reduction. So against some of the hardest hitting bosses, he's then going to potentially get hit like quite hard. And in the run that I did today, so for example, to show just the initial showcase before I start taking him into other events, that video went up on my channel like a couple of hours ago now. That's basically what happened to me. He didn't do any additionals. So it was 3 turns in a row of doing 12 key supers up to, I think the last one was like 8.5 or something. Then we did a big 18 key super, 22 mil. And then on the next turn, like before he got a chance to come back again, I'd beaten the event. So throughout the course of the event, all he really did was like that 1 big super attack, which obviously, you know, whilst it's not bad by any stretch, that kind of attack stat, we obviously have a lot of units now that are doing stuff like that and more, and potentially like multiple times in a turn. So it's interesting because yeah, it's like I really want him to be good, but it's kind of like struggling to find a place to make him be good, because when you look at the 200% teams that he's on as well, he just doesn't work very well with a lot of the leaders that he has. And then, of course, the main one that's obviously now out on Global that he released with, and everyone sort of complained when that unit came out, is the other Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and they have the same name.
Yep.
Now, the one thing that is really cool and actually works really well, and I think can be quite fun and quite effective for difficult events, is when you get that turn where you can put the STR Super Saiyan 3 Goku into his standby, then obviously they can link because it's technically a transformation. And because that Goku shows you where the super attack is, you can put the STR Goku where the super attack is, put the LR Goku where you know the super attack isn't, hit that 18 key super, and then you don't have to worry about him like getting blasted by a super attack because you know where it is. But then unfortunately, like I said, that's the only turn where they can link. So it just doesn't really work super well on that Goku team, which is a bit of a shame. So, I mean, like he's decent, like defensively. I feel like he could be good on a team for like a Movie Heroes build or something like that. If you're just using him as like a 3rd slot floating unit, if you don't have like a better option, because obviously after his 12 key super, his defense can be okay with 50% damage reduction. But unfortunately, I just feel like on a lot of the teams that you could run him on, there's probably just better options. Or if you did want to just bring a character to run in slot 3, you'd bring like a support unit instead or something, right? So it's a shame because I love this guy. He was the first summonable LR I ever rainbowed. So I've always been a big fan of this unit. But I think now that I've finally gotten my hands on him on Global, I'm just not as impressed as I was when I originally saw him, because at least on Global, he like will dominate the content that we, you know, we're still stuck in the like Zamasu and Omega are our main events meta on Global. But yeah, once that harder content starts to come, I do worry like how long he'll actually be useful for, which is unfortunate.
Not long, unfortunately. I think, you know, it doesn't help as well that I know you mentioned the thing of obviously with you know, the Super Saiyan 3, him coming out with STR Super Saiyan 3 Goku, right? That obviously you have like, okay, well, literally it's like you're putting him against the brand new shiny unit, right? So of course it's going to be hard to compete. I think it also doesn't help that now we also have AGL Super EZA Super Saiyan 3 Goku. So, you know, there is like options for Super Saiyan 3 Goku specifically, right? That you can pick.
Better options, by the way.
Right, exactly. As much as I love my GOAT, and I will not accept slander about him because he is very good, right? I definitely think that, you know, unfortunate. Well, I mean, not like unfortunately, like I want the other units to be bad, but you know,
if I speak, token assets will
I'll jump through the screen. Nah, but for real though, like, you know, I'm just glad that obviously we like. It's cool that we even have a bunch of good options for Super Saiyan 3 Goku, right? Yeah. Like, you know, I feel like with even just like, you know, in last year's meta or like a little bit before, it's like, dude, before now we really had like no good Super Saiyan 3 Gokus really, because they all kind of aged out, or, you know, obviously the STR one didn't exist. Yep. And now, right, we have all these great options that like are actually viable for difficult content. So I do think that that is really cool as a Super Saiyan 3 fan. Yep. But right, with that being said, obviously he's certainly not a bad option. You can still run him. And I guess the cool thing about all these options too is that if you don't have one of them, right, then obviously you can kind of substitute in another. Now, not that they fit the same roles, but, you know, obviously it's just like, you know, the thing of all the options. Like, I know me, I think I went like 600 stones on both the New Year's banners, something like that, and I didn't get Harutogan or Goku, unfortunately. So, right, I have Super EZA Goku, and obviously I have this guy. I have him long rainbowed. So obviously I've been running them where I've needed a Super Saiyan 3 Goku, so that is pretty cool. But yeah, definitely pretty excited about that. And I guess that's basically everything about Super Saiyan 3 Goku, right? And ironically enough, our next talking point is actually another Super Saiyan 3 as we move into JP.
He's trying to ignore the most important thing. How could you do this?
I forgot! I really forgot. Right, I forgot before. Listen, I was trying to do a transition with the Super Saiyan 3s.
I have to slander this guy real quick, okay?
Listen. Right, I forgot we have Global World Tournament. Woo!
Before we continue,
pick up your active skill.
I just want to say the Super Saiyan 3 Goku doesn't really work well in 9th anniversary content. You would think he does.
Wait, 9th? Like, 9th, yeah. For some reason, sorry. For some reason, I thought you were meant to say 10th, and I was like, wait, we're not there yet.
What? No, not yet.
He probably won't, though, sadly.
He's probably going to suck there. Right? It's just...
True.
It's just a thing where his damage not good. Yep. Like, I think you can say, oh, he has a 24 mil. He doesn't crit or super effective. And, like, what units that are damage dealers don't do crit? He has, like, that one turn crit that he gets on turn 6 under 59 HP. At 59%, right? And
awkward to get.
It's just really weird to try and aim for that, and then it's just that one turn, and then again you have to build him up. He does nothing. His defense is mediocre at this point. Well, I want to say mediocre. Like it's 7 out of 10, mid. You know, okay, it's decent, right? But it's not like crazy. God. You would think it'd be better, but he's like what, 500k defense with the 59% reduction. It's death. Right, against supers, and then it's like his only thing he's doing is defense. So if all he's doing is defense and he can't tank supers, then what is he gonna do? And if all he's doing is offense and then he does no damage, what does he do? You know, it's just, I think they try to split it too hard, and then like so many other characters just do what they do every single turn. You know what I mean? And it's not a satisfying payoff. They should have made this guy hit like that one turn, like a 50, 60 mil tax that with guaranteed crit. And then I'd be like, yeah, okay, maybe that payoff.
Yeah, it'd be worth it for him. Like I say, if he does like basically nothing for like 3 turns, but then he's doing like, you know, a 40 million attack stat with a guaranteed crit, then it's like, okay, well, that's worth it. But a 22 million that then potentially doesn't crit, which means if you're fighting an int boss, it means even with a 22 million attack stat, he doesn't do that much damage. Like, and
brutal. He should have lost all of his reduction, because then he gets what, like 700k defense? Well, no, like 500k defense, right? Yeah, like 500, 600k, maybe at max if you're using him up. Then it's like he doesn't take normal sometimes.
Well, it's like I used him in, I think we were just messing around doing challenge runs on a stream, and I did the Harutogan Red Zone stage from the movie Bosses 2 on like on the JP side, obviously. And like I thought it'd be fun to use him for the, you know, thematically to use this guy against that Harutogan event. And in the final phase against, I can't remember, is he Tech, the final phase of Harutogan? doing the Dragon Fist, because, you know, it's like, yeah, well, we're against Final Hirudegarn now, so let's do the Dragon Fist. Did a big damage, and then he's taking like 200k normals or something. It's like, oh, okay. Like, whoops.
How hard does Hirudegarn hit? Let's see. His normals hit for
Bro got bodied.
630k normals.
Yeah, so,
and he's gonna hit for 200k damage.
Yeah, and this is a guy who, like, this is Hirudegarn, who's like nowhere near the hardest of the bosses that come from the anniversary stuff. Like, well, I mean, technically Hirudegarn came before the anniversary, but yeah, so it's a bit of a shame. Like,
I don't know. He should have been much better.
Yeah.
But again,
especially because it was a meme for so long, right? Like, we waited so long for this guy to get his EZA, and then
and he's just like Goku Black.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to give my input from like 9th anniversary.
One thing I do think is really funny, by the way, we didn't have this written down as a topic, but I thought it'd be kind of funny to mention because it reminded me when Theo was saying about all the Super Saiyan 3 Gokus, is that post that the Global Dokkan put out, where they put out that post about the apparently like top ranked teams that people were using for Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Hirudegarn. And one of them was a team where somebody was using this guy, which means on Global he didn't have his EZA yet. But their entire team was like, it was the 3 Super Saiyan Gokus, like the STR1, the AGL Super EZA, and this guy without
the number
EZA.
3 spot.
Yeah, and then like 3 Tapion. Well, it was 2 Tapions and then Tapion and Minosha.
Here.
So the whole team was like 3 units named Super Saiyan 3 Goku.
There you go.
And then the 2 Tapions and LR Tapion and Minosha. And it's like, what? What? Who's running that and in what event? Like,
like, here's the thing, right? I like, obviously that team is like purely like a thematic team, right? Like, that's clearly like they're doing it.
This is my Wrath of the Dragon team. Like,
I know, like it's supposed to be like I know it's a Wrath of the Dragon team, and people are like, oh, people run teams for fun. If you're gonna run a Wrath of the Dragon team, are you really gonna run like only Tapion and Super Saiyan 3 Goku? Like, there's like other Wrath of the Dragon.
That's true. There's if you really wanted to be like thematic about it, there's something like, what about Trunks, right? Like that tech Trunks, you would want to run him.
There's the Gohan, there's the Videl. You know, even
I mean, you couldn't even run that Frieza, bro.
Yeah, like,
isn't that Frieza from Wrath of the Dragon, where all the villains come back?
That's the Fusion Reborn, isn't it?
That's Fusion Reborn, buddy.
Hell. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But
I'm
like,
confusing my all the villains come back from hell episode. Sorry.
It's just weird because like that Tech Trunks is like way better than, like, I don't know. I think
hold on, no, the STR one is from Wrath of the Dragon, the one from the April Fools.
That's Fusion Reborn. The
you
hell, bad guys coming back from hell.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right. You gotta rewatch. I'm like, when did Frieza appear?
I'm combining my. It's because they both have Great Saiyan, man. That's why.
Right.
It's because they both have that, and then they all fight. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, dude, I remember seeing that clip from that movie when I was younger, without seeing the full movie, where it's like Frieza versus Great Saiyan Man, and he's like, you're Goku's son. I guess I'll get revenge by killing you, and Gohan just like one shots him. It's awesome.
Dude, man, that is great. But yeah, like, I don't know. I genuinely wonder where they took these teams from. Like, I wonder if it's like either, because my thought would be the way that they got these was either like Omatsu opened up his like leaderboard, you know, like you can look at who has the fastest times, and it was just like, all right, let's just see like what teams people are running, and we'll just use it for the tweet, or I don't know. Maybe they just made it up, bro. Like, genuinely, I would not be surprised if they're just like, you know, I mean, the top one is literally like, you know, Gohan, Least, and Orange Piccolo, and then the GT boys, the Boo boys, and then the worldwide units. It's like, okay, so they just took some of the most popular characters in the game, you know, some of the biggest releases in recent-ish time, and threw them on a team, right? The second one is like, okay, well, you know, it's Gogeta and Vegito, and then obviously, again, 3 more really popular units with the worldwide Goku, Godku, and Vegito again, and then obviously the Wrath of the Dragon team. The popular allies, sure, that one I could see being a little bit more feasible, right?
Weird as well, but The funny thing is,
maybe not Super Saiyan 3 Goku, but
yeah,
4 Goku rather. Sorry.
What's funny is the extreme teams, which like so many people commented on it saying about how like,
dude,
it's the same. It's basically the same team 3 times, but with one unit like swapped around.
Like, okay, so what is the unit difference for these? So like team 1 is
literally LR Metal Cooler, Tech Janemba, or STR TUR Cooler. Every team is a combination of having one or both or none of those, and all the rest of the units are the same. Like, it's the same team for 3 times, basically, but with one thing changed. Like, one team has Tech Janemba and STR Cooler, the other one has Tech Janemba and LR Metal Cooler, and then the other one has STR Cooler and LR Metal Cooler. It's like those 3 units. Each version of the team is using 2 of them, but not the other one. And it's like, it kind of shows you how like limited the villain options are at the moment when it comes to Harudegan and his team. Like,
I was just gonna say, literally, like, this tweet is like a shining golden example from Bandai themselves that we need more good villains. Yeah. Like, if you're telling me this is the variation.
I mean, the fact that it has LR Janemba and Tech Janemba that are like how old now, and they're the most like high ranked used team for Harudegan. Now the funny thing is, I did a video where I took the 2 teams that were at number 1 and used them against Omega Shenron. And funnily enough, like, I won with the Superclass team, and I almost won with the Extreme team. Literally on the turn where I would have won, Harudegan didn't dodge a super in slot 1. So it wasn't even one of the old units that actually lost the run. Like, I was actually genuinely surprised with how good STR LR Cooler was in that run against Omega. Obviously got good luck, right? Like, he didn't get supered early on or anything like that. But so the teams, whilst they seem odd, like, they do kind of work in the global meta, but yeah, it's just very, very odd. So
yeah, that was strange. You know, I do think it's funny too, like, you know, looking at the villain teams as well, besides obviously Harudegan, the newest character on there is Battle Cooler. That should tell you how infrequently we get updates for these characters, because like, besides obviously the Wrath of the Dragon team, right? Like, you have some variation as to like the age a little bit of the characters being used for the 1 and 2 teams on the hero side. So I don't know, man. It is just very weird. It kind of like, it's when Dokkan does posts like these, it's always so funny to me because I swear they like expose themselves almost.
It's weird because I got a lot of pushback because like when I made that video, I was kind of laughing about the teams a little bit. And then, you know, as we played through the stage, it was like, well, you know, the team's actually working. But I got a lot of people saying in the comments, you know, like, oh, not everybody cares about optimal teams. Like, not everybody is like a YouTuber or on Twitter and is using like the best units all the time. And it's like,
well, yeah, but like...
which is true. But the question is, like, we kind of mentioned it already, is like, what events were people actually running these teams for? Because that Wrath of the Dragon team, where it's like the 3 Super Saiyan Gokus, the 2 Tapions, and then Tapion on Minosha, like, that team build, unless you're just relying on STR Goku's lower dodge chance in slot 1, that team has no slot 1 units, so you can't be doing hard events with that team.
Yeah, like, it's just for casuals, and it's just for weird. A theme thing, but it just feels so...
Like, for them to be like, this is the 3rd highest, like, this is the 3rd most used STR Goku team on global.
And then, right, like, exactly.
The first 2 are like teams for difficult events. It's just like, I don't know. I think that, like, it just feels weird. It felt a little weird to me.
Yeah, it's the way they presented it, right?
It's fun that they do stuff like that. Like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
but then
I hope they do more
tweets. It's like, really?
Yeah,
because the teams, like,
I think if they said it more like, you know, oh, these are some teams use or something like that, right? But like, this seems like the type of thing where it's like you're bored one day and you want to run like, you know, the team because it's like, oh wow, this is cool. You know, it's like a theme team, right? So it's like I'm like playing the movie.
So you do like the legendary Goku event or something like Easy, right? But
yeah, it's like, you know,
or something.
Yeah, right, whatever the case is. And then, you know, you're like, oh yeah, you know, I'll use it because it's like a theme for the movie, you know, and it'll be fun. And I'm sure it is, but that's a lot more of like a niche thing, rather than, like, oh yeah, everybody under the sun is running my favorite team.
I think what would have made more sense, and it would actually be cool for them to do that anyway. I know it would require a little bit more effort on their part, potentially. Although we don't know where they got this information from, so maybe this would actually be easier. But it would have been cool for them to do something like putting out a tweet, like a week or so before, of them saying like, hey, like global players, like show us what is the team that you've been running for Dragon Fist Goku. And then they just pick 3 of those at random. And then the tweet is like, here are some of the teams that the global players have been using. Like, that'd be fine. Yeah. It's the fact that it's ranking them in terms of like the most popular formations. And it's like, well, like I have a set build for an STR Super Saiyan 3 Goku team that I really like and I think is really fun. And it's nothing like any of those 3, which is like, it's just strange. It's like, this is the most popular build. It's like, well, by what metric? It's kind of strange.
Right.
But...
What's weird to me is like some of the allies that are most popular aren't even on the teams.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, I was looking, and like, to be fair, like I was also thinking they don't even link that well, right? Like, I was like,
it's just, I think it's a thing where maybe we're thinking too much into it, and maybe just like,
maybe
there's so many. Twitter is just such a small scope.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about that. I mention that all the time, where like, because people will talk to me. And like, whether it's like the homies, because obviously they know I'm big into Dokkan, and whether they like casually play the game or, it's just like, whatever, even if they're as into it as I am, we'll be having like a discussion about like, oh, like this is really a big thing in Dokkan and blah, 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 because everybody's talking about it. And I'm like, well, yes, but actually no, because it's like, it's the type of thing where it's like our community for Dokkan seems so big, right? And seems like it is like this over-encompassing thing that, like we have like every Dokkan player, right? Basically like at our beck and call on twitter.com essentially. But I think the thing that people really don't think about when it comes to like YouTube and Twitter, obviously, right, is that at the end of the day, our community for like Dokkan is relatively a niche of the game, right? When it comes to like YouTube and Twitter stuff. And I think people just don't think about that because they just see all this around them and they're like, wow, our community, like this is like everybody in it, right? But no, like, I mean, even think about the fact, and obviously I understand that there's not this many people playing the game 24/7. And obviously I understand the fact that, a lot of the accounts made for like, the Dokkan like download celebrations and whatever are obviously also reroll accounts, right? Because obviously, it's so easy to run an account through a bot and then reroll and then get 1,000,000 stones and then do it. And so many people have done it, I mean, literally, we know that it has been done so many times that it's become a problem where the friends list was like new. Yeah. Right. So it's like people do it. And obviously a lot of those downloads come from that, right? Because they're just counting game downloads. They're not counting like consistent players. But with that being said, right, the game has so many downloads. Like I think we got up to like 400 million or 500 million or something. And they just stopped counting. They now just call that celebration that used to be like the 300 million download celebration or the 350 million download celebration. They just now call that worldwide because there's just so many like downloads that like they just stop counting. So the thing of it is, right, is that you have to think about it in that perspective where it's like, if there are that many accounts that have been downloaded, obviously there's not that many like people playing the game at one time, or maybe even like at all, right? I don't know if there's like 300 million people that are playing Dokkan like that, you know what I mean? But the point that I'm trying to make is that obviously there are a lot of people playing the game, right? A ton. And there are a lot of people who, like, as much as we probably don't think about it, right, quite literally just, searched on the App Store or on the Play Store, like, Dragon Ball game, right? Dokkan popped up, and then they're like, oh, cool, Dragon Ball, and then download the game and just play it and log in whenever, right? They don't even know that, like, it has a Twitter page, or they don't even know that, like, a YouTube community exists. There are tons of people like that out there that just play the game. I've met people like that who I've seen them playing Dokkan in public. In fact, a couple years ago, my waiter at Buffalo Wild Wings played Dokkan because me and my buddy who play the game, and he is a part of the community, but we were sitting there playing Dokkan waiting for our food to come, and our waiter came by to ask us something, and he's like, oh my gosh, you guys play Dokkan? And then we were like, yeah. And he was like, hold on, I'm gonna go get my phone, I'll show you my account. We were like, yo! So like, you know, people like that do exist. And like, that guy had no idea about, like, you know, the community or anything like that. He just plays the game.
Yeah, it's like I'll get people in my stream sometimes if I'll mention like, oh, you know, I put up a post on Twitter about XYZ. Like if I do one of those things, you know, where I put up a post that says, tell me what you guys think about this, and then I make a video about it later or whatever. Is I'll get a bunch of people in the chat that are like, I don't use Twitter, or like, you know, I'm not in any like Facebook groups, and like I don't know any other people that play it. So like, you know, even watching a YouTuber is like the only thing that they do. And there are some people that don't do any of that. That is the main takeaway. Is like, whilst the community online might be big, it's probably at most it's probably like 10% of the players are like part of the active Twitter like community. Probably at most.
Yeah, if that even.
Exactly.
Right?
Like 5%.
I feel like that's being generous.
But yeah, like at most it would be 10%, which is still 90% of people just don't like have no interest or don't ever watch content on it. And like you said, are potentially people that just don't even necessarily log in every day. Someone in the chat just said, I just met someone recently IRL that plays, and they didn't even know there was a JP version. So it's like,
right, because they just downloaded the game on the App Store.
So, it's interesting to think about. But yeah, the teas are just funny. I just wanted to bring it up because obviously we said about like there being so many Super Saiyan 3 Gokus available now. I just thought it was kind of funny. But yeah,
I just wonder how global players feel like when they like, because you know how they think they mix things around. And then it's like some things that were in the same celebration and make sense on GP were just switched on global. What are those global players feel? They're like, you know, the ones that don't play it, they're like, why did they release this unit when there's a celebration? Like why did Omega come out when Super Saiyan 4 Goku came out a few months ago? Isn't that weird?
Omega just randomly came out in like February or whenever it was he came out.
There's someone out there that's just thinking about stuff like that. It's like, that's so weird. What's the point of this decision?
See, bro, can you imagine if they figured out and they get a light, that like moment of realization must be a crazy dopamine hit, bro.
And then they're like, I'm gonna look it up, and they look it up one day, and then they find out about the GP version.
Well, like, you got to think though, there will be people out there that when they put out the actually, I don't even know if it did appear in the news in the game now that I think about it, but like they put out the first ever global tweet, like maybe it was when it was the shared Golden Week or something. And the first thing that appeared in the game that said like shared celebration with the Japanese version, and like there will be people out there that were like, the what now? Like,
what do you mean Japanese version? They look it up and they're like,
wait, there's a version of the game that's like, because I remember when I started playing it, obviously many years ago now, and someone showed the game to me that I worked with. I didn't know it existed, and so I just started playing it, and it was ages until I knew there was a JP version. And obviously, you know, after a year or so of playing and then starting to make content, was then in that boat of like, oh, I wish I'd known there was a version that was like 6 months ahead before I started like actually spending all this time and stuff on it. But yeah.
By the way, Minato, my line stones work now. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't really do anything. It wasn't me, but yeah.
nah, you helped in some capacity.
JP version W.
Indeed.
The real JP win. Line stones.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, either way though, I don't know. I think that's really interesting. Honestly, that could be a whole like discussion in and of itself, to be honest. But regardless, I do think that is really cool. So hey, people watching, if you ever come across someone in public who plays Dokkan Battle, definitely introduce them into the community, bring them into the fold.
No, don't. To have them. Please don't.
Or maybe not, because maybe they'll be more sane that way. I don't know. Twitter.com is a pretty wild place.
I love the Dokkan community, but
right, there's that big butt there for sure.
Let's
But yes, either way,
we've waited to talk about the World Tournament long enough.
yeah. Let's just skip it, bro. We don't need to know. So actually, though, I will say, I did want to actually touch on this Global World Tournament. I'm glad that you didn't let me skip past it by accident. Because the one thing I did want to mention, right, with it, is that it is quite an interesting Global World Tournament, to say the least. And of course, the reasoning being, right, the fact that Global had a World Tournament. What was it? It was like literally 2 weeks ago.
Well, like it will be a month, give or take, like a couple of days, basically. So
yeah, which is like unprecedented for time between World Tournaments. Like it was really quick between these World Tournaments. Now, again, right, we are obviously in the time of the legendary sync. So, of course, right, there is going to be some shenanigans like that where it may feel like that things are happening a little bit closer to each other than maybe would normally be the case. So with that being said, right, obviously, this is just a case of that. They're trying to, sync the versions. So obviously they're going to be, moving up these, events sometimes. And again, it's kind of funny since we were talking about like Gotenks. It's like, it's weird what they're deciding to like bring up and what they're deciding to, just kind of like leave where it is. But I think World Tournaments are something that are so easily movable, right? Where it's like you can just basically, throw them anywhere, right? It's not like they're really themed anything. I think the only time maybe was like for the Golden Week celebration last year where, it was like technically like a World Tournament theme. So, like there was that. But really, right, I think that it's like you can pretty much put those anywhere. So I think that's a perfect thing to bring up. And I know that World Tournament isn't necessarily people's like favorite type of content. I get that. But, I have to say, right, and this is certainly like a good point of contention, I think, is the fact that, it is literally just free stones, like, especially considering that obviously this is just another, I literally forgot what the World Tournament was called for 5 seconds. Thank you, Brain. It's just another World Tournament right before the anniversary, right? This is just a bunch more anniversary stones for you to be able to get your hands on, because obviously, with the fact that, the anniversary is approaching, faster than one may think, right? For Global, obviously, it always kind of sneaks up on you, I feel like. We now have, a bunch of extra stones for you to be able to get. And of course, I'm sure probably for most people, to be honest, it's going to be going more sort of Golden Week than anything, because obviously that's what's coming up very, very soon. But regardless, right, I think it's just like, it's just more stones to be able to get your hands on. So that is pretty cool. And obviously, with this World Tournament, we did get a bunch of new EZAs and whatnot. So I don't know which one of you wants to talk about them. Probably the mix of both of you, but whoever wants to take it away, go for it.
I don't know. Do you want to go again, or do you want?
Well, I mean, I know. So the thing is, obviously, for us, is it's kind of one of those things where the EZAs are available as soon as the World Tournament starts. But of course, if you don't have any medals left over from last time, you kind of need to wait till the World Tournament rewards come out to actually do the EZAs. I do have some of the medals spare, so I'm going to do some of them, but I haven't gotten around to actually doing them or checking out the videos. So I do know what they do in terms of like reading their kits, but I haven't had a chance to use them. So I'll be interested to see what Minato thinks. You can let me know how close I am, because you can give us the full details. But from from what I've seen, AGL Super Saiyan Gohan seems really good. He seems like the main one that you want to do if you're only going to EZA one of them. The STR Super Saiyan Goku and the physical feat Kamehameha Goku seem like they could be pretty decent. And then Piccolo Jr. just seems kind of And the Bojack Awakening, because he's not the EZA, he's just the TUR Awakening of the older card. He seems like he's all right. He's pretty restricted, but he's restricted to the kind of team that you'd run him on anyway. So he seems like he could be all right. But Gohan kind of seems like the main event one that you should care about. But yeah, I'm interested to see what Minato thinks, having actually gotten to use them.
So yeah, again, these guys came out in December on JP, I think, or was it December or January? When did they come out again? Let me actually take a look here. But Gohan is the only one that really translated well into the ninth anniversary meta, where he's not like even great anymore himself, but he's still decent. Yeah, they came out in December, so he's still decent because obviously he has the 70% chance to dodge. Movie heroes and Super Saiyans keeps getting buffs, and he stacks up defense, which doesn't really stack up too much. It's only 20%, but it still helps, right? And again, with the 70% dodge for a free-to-play character that's supporting, I'll take it, right? The only thing right about him right now is that the main Super Saiyan's leader is now the Tech Vegeta. So he's not supporting that Tech Vegeta, and he's not getting his full support because he gets an extra 1 key and 10% stats when all allies are super class. So he's more suited for the Super Saiyan Trio team, which, again, this guy came out and the Super Saiyan Trio were out literally was it a few days ago or the day before?
Around the same time, because it was in December,
around the same time. Yeah. So they came out roughly around the same time, which that guy was like a huge part of that Super Saiyan Trio team that worked really, really well. So that was pretty cool to see something like that happen. And from looking at it, on JP, it was literally the Super Saiyan Trio came out like the 2 days before. This guy came out, so this guy was like a really good extra option for them, which you could still even at Dokkan events. I usually run that team, the Super Saiyan Trio team, because it's that turn 3 active skill, and then this guy's floating around supporting them. It's kind of fun, but yeah. In terms of pre-9th anniversary, the Super Saiyan Goku is decent. The World Tournament Goku is actually pretty nice as well, right? For free-to-play characters, they got 400, 500k defense. The World Tournament Goku has guard, probably can get even higher. Then the what is it? The 500k defense range, around there if you have his links active. That World Tournament Goku is pretty nice, but 9th anniversary hit and he's kind of dead. Super Saiyan Goku again. 9th anniversary is kind of dead, but he's a decent character. And fights that aren't AoE, he could be a pretty solid floating character. There's also the STR Kaba that's out on Global 2. So, if you're running this guy on the Super Saiyans team, you have Kaba there. He could help get that restriction, and he could be a decent floater character for you on that team. Especially if he gets a triple super, you're usually able to tank most normals in the game, which is helpful. Just in my experience of pre-9th anniversary, right? So on Global's meta right now, he could be a usable character. Piccolo Jr. sucks. I mean, he's not really doing anything too much, unfortunately. He's a Super Battle Road kind of character. In Super Battle Road, he could be decent though, because he has that 20% debuff and then 5% for all enemies if there's even just one superclass enemy. So if you guys aren't aware, passive skill debuffs are very good. Super attack debuffs don't do as much as passive debuffs just because of how it's calculated, apparently. So that passive skill debuff, I believe, is a pure 20% debuff to 25%. So that could be super useful in Super Battle Road. But he also has
plus he has that Jiren-esque thing, doesn't he, where he has the chance to stun all enemies, which obviously can be super useful for Super Battle Road. It's just a shame when these characters come out with when you get an EZA. And it's oh, this character's really good in Super Battle Road, except every category that they're on, the Super Battle Road stage already came out a year ago. So it's they're only good in Super Battle Road, but you've probably already done the stages where you would have potentially used them, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, especially for players like us, mostly, right? I think you could always help some other players, right?
For sure.
I think these characters, I like thinking about them with free-to-play players in mind too. Maybe someone has me in that stage, you could get a use out of him. As long as there's a use for the character, I think that's what makes me happy. So that's why I'm not my junior sucks, but he's still okay, right? In a sense, he sucks for actual normal content, but Super Battle Road, he still has a role there that could be pretty nice, actually. Bojack again, the anniversary is kind of now, but I could see him being a decent character on okay, so the Space Traveling Warriors, right? He wants to be full extreme classic space Traveling Warriors, right? I think that there could be a situation where in the future there's a team that looks really good like that with the Final Form Frieza. I think he's on the Final Form Frieza team because that Frieza leads. What does that Frieza lead again? Actually, I have to take a look here. Oh yeah, I think he leads Space Traveling Warriors. That EZA Frieza. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
right, chat?
Dokkan Fest one.
Yeah, the EZA first from Frieza. Let me take a look here.
I don't know. Global player moment. I can't remember where his leader skill is. We don't have him in the game yet.
I mean, I don't run his team.
I don't have him.
His team isn't good. Yeah, Space Traveling Warriors. So it's like if we get more buffs to that team within like the next year or so, and that team could be really good, then this Bojack maybe could be a decent floating support character. Give him full dodge, and he won't be bad. He's not going to be good or really spectacular in like the most difficult content, but he'll at least be decent, right? He's guarding. He has 500, 600k defense. So he's able to tank a good chunk of normals in the game. Not all normals, but a good chunk of them with full dodge. He could be all right, you know?
Yeah.
I do like his design, but it's really more so we gotta wait for his EZA, and that's in like 2 years. So, or we have to wait, and then that team has to be good in the first place as well. So that's the only thing with him, and you know, but I think he has promise.
Yeah, because isn't he like because he has Shattering the Limit because he's a World Tournament unit. He shares like I think almost every link with the LR Bojack, and it's one of those examples of like units not getting Awakenings or EZAs at the right time to be relevant to be used together, which is unfortunate because that Bojack is he can still be okay in like the current global meta, but he's definitely like outdated by the time we get to the JP content.
To be honest, I think that I did like this batch of units when they first came out, though. I thought it was a good batch of characters, like considering the difficulty of the events that when they came out. Like we were still like a month and a half from 9th anniversary, and when these guys came out, it was all Fusions of Masu, Omega Meta, where these guys are able to actually look pretty nice. For the most part. So especially that Gohan was unbelievably good. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to try him out with the because that's the thing, even with some of the stuff that wasn't out on JP when these guys came out, like the new Vegeta team, like the Kefla EZA, which obviously still isn't on JP, like Super Saiyans has had some interesting buffs. So
yeah, so like Gohan,
looking forward to trying him out.
Movie heroes, right? Got extra buffs. Like we didn't have Dragon Fist Goku out at the time. Characters like that, right? That Gohan again, even on like you could put that Gohan on Beast Gohan's team, I think, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, Beast Gohan does lead a team where you could fit him on there.
Yeah, I think his Bond of Master and Disciple is one of his leader skills. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So like you could just run like a movie heroes variant of that with like Good Blue Gogeta, Beast Gohan, Orange Piccolo, etc., and then you could have that Gohan as a floating character. Because again, it's not just Super Saiyans; it's also movie heroes.
Yeah,
you can't mix and match, but you like it has to be full rotation of one or the other.
Yeah,
but still pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty good, but you know, good old World Tournament. We love it. Shout out to everyone in the chat who's grinding it. I'm grinding away at the moment as we go. I've just cracked back into the top 1,000 overall. So
let's go.
Let's take those.
W for real.
Yeah.
Very, very good. I love Global Dokkan. You know, it's just the best.
Hell yeah, Glow best.
Yeah.
Get them line stones.
Man,
it's so funny because it's translated in the data, the line stones, and they could activate it, but they just chose not to.
Well, to be fair, line is like, I don't want to say it's not a thing.
I'd never heard of it until the thing came out in Dokkan. So
yeah, people could just download line. Like,
I know. I mean, it is on like the global app store. I think it's just more a thing of like, you know, it's just not as popular, so maybe they just don't see a reason to like do it. Because then the thing is, they would have to do translations for all that stuff, right? Because obviously, like on the line application, there's like the menus and stuff with Japanese text, and I know at least during the anniversary, like you could click a button and then it would like text you and be like, "Hey, Gohan Beast is coming to Dokkan Battle soon."
I mean,
so like, you know,
again, it's a thing where they just have to write out text. It's not a big deal. I think at the end of the day, right? But
I don't know. I think they're just lazy.
Yeah, Dokkan is very funny, so I could see what you mean by that.
Dokkan is very funny. Well, anyway, with that being said, right, we will now actually move on from the funny World Tournament, and now move into JP proper. Before we get to the big boy himself, which I'm actually really excited to talk about, I'm not gonna lie. We have the Super EZA for Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. Obviously, this was a pretty cool release because I know that we were kind of like unclear as to, you know, how this guy was going to, or well, realistically, in terms of Super EZA, it's not Gotenks specifically, you know, like, oh, what were we going to be getting next for Super EZA? It's because we didn't know, like, you know, they never said that they were going to go in order, but they never said that they weren't either, right?
Exactly.
So it was like, you know, oh, are they just going to go in order of release, or are they going to theme these guys to celebrations, right? Like, how are they going to handle this?
I think it's like, it was like the translation of that original post, which I think just got everybody confused, right? Because the translation of the original announcement said something about them being released sequentially, which technically doesn't mean anything, because they're going to, unless they brought all of them out at the same time, then obviously they're going to be released in some kind of sequence, like in some kind of order. But everybody took that to mean, oh, well, that means they're coming out in the same order that they got EZAs. And obviously we now know that that is not the case. So
no, definitely not. No, they did not. They did not do that at all. We obviously are jumping around a little bit, which is good. I mean, because
again,
you know,
well, I would say they said sequential, but people mix up sequential with like 1, 2, 3, 4, like in release order. But sequential
more.
Again could be sequential.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
It could literally be like once a month. Like that's following a sequence, a pattern. That's what sequential is.
Well, it's like, even if you think about like number, like problems, like you could have like 1, 3, 5, 7.
Exactly.
That's a sequence. It's
just
not
sequence still.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that the wording of that original message really, like, and because Goku was the first one, right, and he was the first EZA, so it's easy to see why people would get into that mindset. I mean, it's like, they're going to release in the same order. But
it could have, but they never said it. And people like were like, oh, it's going to be this, and it's like, well, no, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. But yeah, either way though, obviously it was very, very cool to see this guy get an EZA. Of course, this was basically following the special pose theming of Topo's celebration, which was pretty cool. And obviously this guy is a pretty old unit, of course, being one of the 70% leaders, and not to mention he is also a pretty well-loved unit. I know that, at least for me, this guy has got a little bit of a nostalgic place in my old heart. He was one of my first Dokkan Fest, I know, on my account as well at JP. So I was very excited to see him get the Super EZA. So, Minato, tell us about this guy. What do you think?
Again, with Tech Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, I think he's good, but as I use him, I'm not really that much of a fan. It's just a thing where you kind of talked about Tech Super Saiyan 3 Goku a little bit, but this guy's like inconsistent with what he's doing, right? It's like if you get the 12 key, he does certain things, 11 key and under, he does other certain things. And it's kind of cool that you could like pick and choose if you can, but sometimes you can't control the picking and choosing, right? And then, like, for example, I took this guy in, I think I was on Topo's team, into the blue Gogeta fight. And at the end, I was like, oh, I can only get the 12 key super. So I got the 12 key super. He did pretty good at damage. Like, well, at the end, it was like a 20 mil, 21 mil or something attack stat, which was nice, right? And he has 50% dodge plus the 33%. He dodged first normal, then he ate a normal for 880k.
Oh,
so, like,
jeez.
Like, that's a thing where, again, at 12 key, he has to dodge or he's dead. It's a dodge or die character. 100% at 12 key. 11 key, he gets the damage reduction, still has the 50% dodge. He gets 50% crit chance, hits way harder. Like at 11 key supers, I've seen this guy hit like 25 mil, 26 mil. And I've seen posts where this guy gets an additional and he's hitting like 30 mil, 35 mil or something. Good. Like with support. Like he could look crazy with additionals. He's supporting for the first few turns. Like I think he's really good. It's just I'm not like a fan of the design because it's a thing where you have to hit 11 key. You're not always going to be able to. Things where, okay, if you're running up with 8 Gotenks, But then eventually you're like, okay, I can get Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks to transform into, I can get the A1 to transform into Super Saiyan 3 with his active, right? Then you get a situation where, I kind of don't want to, because if I do, then Tech Gotenks gets his 12 key no matter what.
Yeah.
And then on Topo's team have Rainbow Orb Changers, so much key support. If you're trying to make this guy look good, every support unit nowadays has key support because that's just what most units want. But this guy is like one of the characters who does not want extra key.
Yeah.
So then it gets to a situation where, okay, I can't run most support units with this guy, or else he's not going to get the 11 key at all. Or I have to rely on an additional for him to get his extra 100% attack and defense so that he can at least maybe take normals and not eat it for 800k, right? Like he did in that one rotation of my video.
Yeah.
So it's just like, if you get lucky, he could look really good. And I kind of do like that they kept the essence of his design, though. He's a fun character to use. It's just risky with him. And it also comes down to, like, even his 12 key super, if you get the 12 key, like for most turns until he's built up or he has support with all links, he's doing like more like 12, 15 mils because his 12 key supreme with no attack raise. And that's just the thing where them being like, oh, we're not going to change super attack effects, maybe later. And it's like, that sucks for this guy, I think, especially. Because that 12 key, if they were able to make it to be immense, give him, like, even if the 12 key stayed a supreme, give him like a 50% defense raise to the turn. The other super attacks raise attack. Give that one like a 50% defense raise. And then what they arguably, in my opinion, what they should have done for this guy as well is he has the 50% dodge at all times. It should have been he always has the 50% reduction. Then at 11 key, he gets the 50% chance to dodge, right?
Okay.
Because I feel like if he always had the damage reduction up, even at 12 key, and you gave him a defense raise for the turn, he would always still be able to take normals. That 50% reduction is pretty huge, right? Or at least he wouldn't get one shot by normals, right? But if you don't have that reduction, he just gets one shot if he doesn't dodge. And sure, he has 50% plus a 33%, so likely you're going to dodge, but it's not like guaranteed, right?
Yeah, it's just like, it's the UI Goku meme all over again, isn't it? It's like sometimes you just don't dodge and then you die. Like, well, you have a high dodge chance. Like
UI Goku at least tanks a good amount of normals, right?
I mean, like the original, like, I know he's much better now, right?
Yeah,
but, like,
I mean, like before his ETA, I guess you're thinking of global players. Oh my god, global players!
I was talking about the old meme. I know it's not a meme anymore.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm playing around too. But yeah, that's my thoughts on him. Good. I personally am not a fan of his design. I actually feel like I would say the AGL Super Saiyan 3 Goku I like more. Because with him, I could just throw him on any team and he doesn't have to worry about anything. I could use him as a floater on any team. I don't have to build the team around him. I could run all these busted supports with key support. I can run all the orb changers I want. Like with this Gotenks, if I'm trying to run him on Dragon Fist Goku's team, I'm like, I can't bring my LR Blue Gogeta because LR Blue Gogeta is going to make him get 12 key all the time.
Yeah.
And then he becomes a liability, I think, a lot of times with the 12 key, in my opinion. So it's like I kind of have to build my team in a way where I'm just making the team worse to make this guy look better.
Yeah.
And I personally don't like units like that. But he can look really good. I really want to stress, because when you say stuff like that, people are like, oh, so the unit's bad. The unit is good, but that's the issue with him.
Yeah.
That's my opinion from using him.
There's a problem with them, the link level update as well. I'm not sure how it affected the ones that he has specifically, but it's like he's a character that has multiple links that give him a lot of key. Because he has Over in a Flash and he has Fused Fire. So like you said, you've got any other Gogeas or Gotenkses or anything like that. And then, he just gets tons of key. And then you can't get the 11 key super, which is kind of awkward. It's weird to have a character where they've designed him so that you want to get less key. And then they give him loads of links that give him loads of key. So
yeah,
that's just the thing. Well, it's like with both Over and a Flash and Fuse Fighters, you just can't get the 11 key, right?
yeah,
And it's like, okay, well, if I transform in Gotenks becomes so much better, but then Tech Gotenks becomes worse.
yeah.
He hits way less harder. His defense is very risky. But then if you don't transform in Gotenks, it's like, well, at the end of the events, he's very risky as well. And you need the int one that's like way better, right? The Super Saiyan 3 one, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just yeah, he's kind of silly. That's all I could say. He's just a silly character. I think he's really good though. Right?
I think with the key thing, right? I don't know. I kind of feel like that's just sort of a almost like a relic of a bygone era, sort of.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's like, back in the day, right? Obviously, it was so much harder to get key. And even when Gotenks came out, right? Like, it certainly wasn't impossible to get super attacks, but it was certainly a little bit more difficult than it is now. It wasn't as difficult when, like, the game obviously was in its infancy, but it was still, like, a little bit more difficult. And so I think it was easier to get some of these funny key numbers, right? To be able to, take advantage of a mechanic like that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, when it comes to these EZAs and Super EZAs, Dokkan tries to keep the sort of like essence of the original character alive in some way, because I appreciate that. And I think it's being faithful to, what they've created and, have kind of fostered over the years with that character.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it's kind of unfortunate because then sometimes, right, some of the mechanics, sort of get like almost lost in the shuffle, because obviously if they have something that's a little bit older and they're still trying to like, do something with that, of course, then it kind of becomes a thing of like a case like this where it's like, well, you're not really going to be getting these other key super attacks because at this point in the game, characters just get so much darn key that, it's like it's almost impossible to like not get a super now. Like there's times where I know I've tried for like, whatever event I'm playing to like get a lower amount of key for whatever reason. And it's really hard because either all the units just link together or, you collect a bunch of key orbs and then bam, now your key is full and you're like, well, guess I'm not getting the not the big boy super that I was trying to get.
Yeah.
So, when it comes down to it, right, I think that is a little bit of a shame because obviously it's the type of thing where it's like, it is a very cool mechanic and I think it is very interesting, but it's just as the game has evolved, it's not really as good of a mechanic.
Yeah, because I remember pulling him when he first came out, like when his banner came out on Global.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously back then, like, especially on his team, right, because it was just tech 70%, like there weren't a lot of units that had Over in a Flash even. Like, and there certainly weren't many units going around that had Over in a Flash and Fused Fire. So when he first came out, it was a lot easier to get like 9, 10, 11 key. And like you said, in those days when it was a bit harder, there weren't as many like key supporters and orb changes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when he came out, it was cool that he was one of the units that could actually get a super at like 9 key.
Right.
Because sometimes you might only be able to get 9 key, right? So yeah, now that it's kind of moved forward into where we are now in the game and all these other characters and links and supports, and like you say, it's kind of cool that they still have that mechanic for him. But I think they should have definitely given something in his passive to make it so that, if you get stuck into that situation where you have to get 12 key, then he can still be strong, like defensively, right? Because that's going to be the worst, is if it was a case where like 11 key is which it kind of is the case where 11 key is what gives him the most damage, but then the 12 key is where he's the most tanky, then it means if you're playing difficult events and you get to a turn where you can't help but get 12 key, it doesn't really matter because that's his best turn defensively. But yeah, by making it so that if you have to get 12 key, that makes him a little bit of a liability, then it means if you take him into a tough event and then you get into that situation, it's like, well, now there's nothing you can do. You just like, you have to get 12 key and now he's not going to be very good defensively and you're potentially going to die, which is not ideal design.
That's why I'm like, he has the high chance of dodge at all times. He should just have the 50% reduction, and then on 12 key, give him 50% dodge. Then on the 11 key, that's where you can give him the 33% chance of dodge instead. So that he is always consistently with the reduction, but then at 12 key, he has also dodge while doing less damage, and that's the trade-off, right? I think that'd be fair, and it'd be like, it would even him out to the point where it's like, okay, you get 12 key, he doesn't dodge, he does, he's dead. you're done, buddy. But like, that's also Blue Gogeta normal that hits for like 1.6 mil. So
yeah, that's one of the hardest hitting normals in the game, to be fair. But
still, it's like there's still normals that are hit for 1 mil, and it's like he's still just taking so much damage, right, from normals still. Yeah. So
all right, Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, love him or hate him, he's unit in the game.
He is in the game. Nah.
He do be in the game though. Now, probably the thing that I've been the most excited to talk about today, and not at all knowing me because of what the unit does. But of course, right, for this celebration and for the funny special pose shenanigans, we had a release. I know we've been speculating for a fat minute. We were like, oh, is it going to be LR Gotenks? Surely, because of all this Gotenks stuff that we're getting, is it going to be Kefla, right? Because obviously the Kefla asset on Global and, the Kefla EZA and blah, 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 blah. No, ladies and gentlemen. We had the GOATs take the stage once again. The Int LR Ginyu Force is our Part 2 LR. Oh, man. So, the Ginyu Force, man, like, it's just a group of characters that you just can't hate, right? Like, I feel like there's not a single Dragon Ball fan out there that doesn't like the Ginyu Force, right? Like, they're just so much fun.
Well, I'm actually, I like my Super Saiyan and my Super Saiyan 4. And,
no! It's like, in terms of, like, just, like, these characters, right? I think it's just, like, everybody, everybody likes the Ginyu Force, right? Now,
if you hate the Ginyu Force, you'll be hunted down.
Yeah, for real. Like, I don't know. They're just a good time, right? Any episode with the Ginyu Force in it is just a fun episode of Dragon Ball. Now, with that being said, right? Obviously, I'll let you guys talk about their kit and whatnot. But man, I have to say. As obviously the meme is that, of course, I hate all Dokkan animations, because, of course, I'm a certified hater.
Yep.
I was actually blown away by these guys' animations, and let me tell you why. So, here's the thing, right? I don't think that these guys' animations are like the best in the game by any means, right? I still think that the 9th anniversary units have that on lock, right? Like, I don't think they're going to be touched, right? They're really good. But these guys' animations were not only super unique, super creative, right? They were of consistent quality and consistent high quality, right, for every single one of the animations that were at play. And they didn't have any animations that were like, because there's a lot of times where, like, I'll look at a character and sometimes they may have the best animations in the game, right? But then there's one animation that I look at and I'm like, yeah, that kind of holds back the units, like, what they bring to the table animation wise as a whole, right? I think, ironically enough, talking about the 9th anniversary, a good example of that is Gogeta himself, right? Like, that transformation animation is just like, dog, what were they doing? But of course, Gogeta has so many great animations to him. Like, it's not like I can say that, like, his animations are bad, of course, right?
Let me see what you're talking about.
I mean, it's very simple, but it's like, it kind of, I swear it takes you out of the rest of it because the rest of it is so good. And regardless, right, there's always little things that I feel like I nitpick when it comes to animations. But when I did the video for these guys, I struggled really hard to find any negatives with their animations. And when that's the case, they did a good job because I'm always very thorough and very analytical when it comes to these things and trying to pick it apart as much as possible, right? And so if it's and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I know I'm stroking my own ultra ego here, but, like, I feel like if I really struggle to find anything, like wrong with units animations overall, right? I feel like that means that they did a really good job. Quite literally, the only thing that I had to say about these guys, and it's not even really a negative with what's there, it's a negative of, I guess, like what could have been. The only thing that I was saying that was kind of a little bit unfortunate was that their individual super attacks, I felt like were a little bit short, right? Obviously, you had the rock, paper, scissors intro, but then they just either did like one key blast or one attack or something like that. I was kind of like a little bit like, it would be cool if they had a little bit more to each of the individual animations, right? But I guess with that also being said, they might have thought it through in the way of like, well, if they have all these animations and you're going to be seeing all these animations all the time, maybe it's best to keep them a little bit shorter, because obviously, if they were all super crazy long, this unit would take forever to use, right? And not to mention, right, in terms of just like thinking about it from a business perspective, obviously they are a yellow coin LR, and so of course they're not going to, I mean, they did get as much love as a big boy unit as far as I'm concerned. But I would think that maybe they would not like hold back, but you know what I mean? They wouldn't go as crazy on it in terms of like, adding a bunch of stuff, because they are like, just kind of like a filler, quote unquote, unit. The only other thing too was that like it would have been really cool if there was an individual Ginyu super attack, where like, is obviously the rest of the Ginyu Force members for the 12 key, they got those super attacks for themselves, but then obviously Ginyu didn't have one. However, in a weird kind of way, that not being there, I thought was almost like cooler than him having one, and only in the way of then it focused on the rest of the Ginyu Force members, because obviously Ginyu, most of the Ginyu Force cards we have are like a focus on Ginyu with the rest of them kind of assisting, or right, obviously we have like literal Ginyu cards, right, which is Ginyu himself. So I thought that was kind of cool that in that way, right, it kind of gave a little bit of a more focus to the rest of the team. And not to mention, it kind of makes it feel a little bit more special that then in the 18 key super attack, Ginyu pulls up to help the squad, right? Because obviously he, wasn't there for like the other super attacks. Yeah. So then, when he joins in for obviously the joined attack with the 18 key, that's pretty cool. And obviously that's a really cool, like, I don't know if you would call that mechanic. I guess it'd be more like creative choice, right? That it's like, obviously they have all these individual ones, and then, you have like the whole team work together for the big boy super attack. So I think that that's really cool. And obviously the whole thing of like them playing rock, paper, scissors to see who does the super attack is awesome, right? That is so fun. And the fact that they actually like win rock, paper, scissors, like if you look at their hands, the character who gets the super actually wins the game, which is awesome. Yeah. It's cool that they put in that much attention to detail. And I think just to kind of wrap up my thoughts on this, like, I think the thing that is so great to me about these guys is that, like I said, it's the overall consistent quality with these guys, right? Every single one of their animations is something that I can put my Dokkan Assets seal of approval on, right? That I think it looks really good. The intro is so good, bro. And not to mention, right, even with like obviously the intro is the the Toku Sentai scene with like the flashing lights and all that crazy stuff. They did a bunch of really cool manga references in here too, which was awesome stuff that they included, like for their active skill when they're all like lined up by height. That's literally a manga panel, right? And I like that they just kind of took that and then made like a cool background. Even the intro for the or that, not the intro, but like the introductory scene for the 18 key where they're all standing there looking up, that's also another manga panel, right? So it's cool that they took that stuff and was able to incorporate it to give them some more unique animations. And it was really cool. I think genuinely, like for me, these guys are a new gold standard to look at of what we should expect going forward when it comes to like the quote unquote big boy units, right? Like LRs and Dokkan Fest and stuff like that. Because for me, even though they may not have like, the best animations in the game, obviously their animations are very good. And it's that consistency that I feel like is important, where there's not something that, is like clearly lacking, or they didn't try as much on, or they kind of skimped out on in favor for, like another animation. So for me, I honestly feel like these guys should be the standard of quality because then it's like you can only go up from here type of thing, or be at the level of quality that they're at. So I am honestly, from my my funny animation perspective, of course the Ginyu Force, right? I am I'm very, very satisfied with how they turned out, honestly, right? I really, really like it. I hope that they keep this level of quality going forward, because this year we've seen highs and lows, right? And we've seen some really high highs and some really low lows. So I was honestly really happy, especially considering that like this is a yellow coin LR. I feel like it's kind of funny, right? I feel like a lot of the time when it comes to these yellow coin LRs, these are the units that I feel like if I was like the Dokkan devs, I would be like, okay, team, maybe don't try as hard on these, because people aren't going to care as much. But like, I swear, like the only like few that we've gotten in recent time, right? Like they've all been pretty good, if not really good. I mean, like, Ribrianne, which was the last one, right? Her animations, I know we're all certified Ribrianne haters, but like, again, taking away my bias for the character, right? Just talking about it purely like, from the, unbiased perspective, her animations were really, really good, honestly. I was shocked, frankly. And not to mention, even Super Boo's animations were pretty good, right? And obviously those were all like, really like the most recent yellow coin LRs, unless I'm forgetting one. But either way, it's like I feel like they were all pretty good, and that would be the type of thing where it's like, man, I would expect them to just kind of be like, well, it's just a yellow coin LR, no one's going to summon on it, but they cook on them every time. I don't know. So either way, though, with all that being said, right, I really hope that they kind of keep this momentum going forward, and they really like, keep up with this, because frankly, I'm very impressed, honestly. And I think it is cool too that obviously the Triku, right? I forgot about Triku. Yeah, his animations are all right. I don't think they're anything too crazy. There are some that are definitely a little but for the majority, right, the yellow coin LRs. But either way, though, I think in terms of this being like the Ginyu Force themselves, right, I'm really glad that the Ginyu Force now has obviously like a new unit with really, really good animations, right? Obviously, a modern unit for these characters is really, really cool to kind of have them be more relevant in the modern day. Obviously, it's nice because I'm sure that probably if we ever see the Ginyu Force again in any recent time, or in any, I guess, like close time till now, would be more like the way to say it, in the future, I'd imagine it probably won't be another Ginyu Force unit. It would probably be another like Ginyu focused unit, I would think, because obviously by this point we have basically everything represented for like the rest of the Ginyu Force members for the most part. So I think that it is cool that they now have a really good card. And I don't know if either of you will talk about this when you discuss what the unit does, but I will say one thing that I think it is cool that these guys are now here is that when the like Ginyu Force members, right, when those the side banner units, right, the Jason Birder and the Rakumen Guldo, and then the obviously AGL Ginyu himself, when those guys get EZAs, and you'll be able to put them on the same team as these guys. We're gonna be cooking again, just like when that team came out. That team was so correct, and I think it'll be really cool to see that team kind of return to its former glory with obviously having these guys, be on the team. So yeah, hopefully, whenever that happens, that will be a really fun team to run, because I still enjoy running that Ginyu Force team now, even though it's obviously not as good as it once was. But anyway, with all that being said, right, my TED Talk is now over. Minato, I know that obviously you being a fellow JP main, what do you think about these bad boys?
So, I mean, yeah, I do like their animations. I remember I was talking with someone at the timeline, and they were like, oh, I don't like that. Like, there's 2 assets from AGO Ginyu were used, when I'm like, it doesn't matter. I think the animations are overall consistent, look very good. Like, if they have to reuse a good-looking animation for, like, the character like Ginyu, and then it's like for a character that hasn't gotten representation at all, they're able to put extra time into that character and make them look good. That's fine, right? You know what I mean? Like, preferably they just like put more money into the game and hire more artists.
Angle? Let me go check. Let me look, because I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like the
Let me
18
see.
key for the LR and the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
as the
yeah.
12 key.
Let me
It's
look.
the same assets apparently. Other than people are like comparing it to Dragon Fist, and I'm like, well, the Dragon Fist looks bad.
No,
At
yeah.
least Ginyu's assets look really
Right.
good,
There's a
right?
difference
There's
if
definitely a
they look
difference.
good, yeah.
Yeah, like as long as they
Let
look
me
good,
see.
it's fine. And they put a lot of effort to making this LR look different than like the other Ginyus and Ginyu Force characters in the past.
Yeah.
I like this LR, and the card art looks pretty fun too. But in terms of their design, I guess is something I can talk about here. I think that their design is fun, but it's in a way where it's like closer to fun than like really overpowered, which I'm okay with because they're still a really good LR. There is a situation where you could you could argue don't link level 10 them, but get them to like link level 9. The biggest
Really?
reason is because they have that 15 key super, right? Where it's like 15 to 17 key. It's a very like specific thing to hit. If what happens is if they're at link level 10, they get signature pose, which gets an extra key, and then they also have I think what link is it? Loyalty gets them an extra key, right? So if you're running them on like the well, their team that they're going to be running a special pose. If you're running them on that team, which you will be because of their restriction, they have to be ran a special pose. Because I guess if you guys aren't aware, they need 5 special pose characters for the intro. They need a full special pose rotation for them to guard and be super effective. Then they get damage reduction and a critical hit chance 7% up to 35% per special pose ally in the team. Keep in mind that reduction is only before the attack as well. Then they're also supporting special pose. So again, they're just all special pose, right? The issue is you want them to get their support. They have, again, the 2-turn 25% support if they get a rainbow or int key sphere. Then they also give themselves 50% attack and defense when collecting a type key sphere other than int. So ideally what you want to do is you want to grab a rainbow key sphere and any other type besides int so they get their full stats and their support. But the thing is, with int topo, he changes with physical topo, he changes the int key spheres to rainbow key spheres, which is pretty nice for them, right? But then it's a situation where him as a rainbow orb changer, you're just gonna get yourself a lot of key. And people sometimes are like, like it's sometimes early on you have to choose between missing out on the multi-turn support or just getting the 18 key super and getting their full support and their full passive, right? It's a trade-off. And that's because if you want to stack with them on their 15 key, which they stack attack greatly, right? But they have a 50% chance to also greatly stack defense. Now, the Jace animation is the attack, and then the Birder animation is attack and defense, right? So the thing with that is, I feel like it's kind of interesting, right? Where it's like they have greatly stack attack, but they also have a chance to stack defense. But I personally would think that it's just overall more worth it if you have them on like link level 10 to just go for the 18 key and get the support for everyone, right? You just move through the event faster, you can make everyone tankier. I think that trade-off is more worth it than potentially getting a defense stack, right? Because while it's cool that it's like a 50% chance, it's like I feel like relying on that and missing out on like a core aspect of the character. I'm not really a fan of that.
Yeah.
And that's really it from there. Luckily, and the thing is that they get an additional super attack guaranteed for the rest of battle via their intro. But the issue is that they just get the 12 key, and the 12 key just doesn't stack at all. I think that maybe they could have mixed around the 12 and 18 key super attack effects. I think that could have been interesting. Or that the 12 18 key, the 12 15 key, right? I'm so used to saying 18 and 12, right? Or something like that, where maybe it was they stacked defense and just had a chance to raise attack in the 15 key, where it's like if it's a guaranteed stacking defense, maybe, because that's the important one. But besides that, it's like, if you get like them at link level 9, then they don't get 2 extra key if you have them linked up well. So then it's a thing where, maybe I could actually get the 15 key a lot easier because I'm not getting as much key for my links. But that's just a funny little thing you could think about, I guess, right? They also have an active skill I think is really cool. They could use it from turn 3 with full Ginyu Force team or turn 5 with special pose. The active skill gives himself a 25% active skill boost for the rest of battle and attack and defense. but it also supports all allies 15% attack and defense for the rest of the battle, which is again multiplicative on the active skill, so it's a huge buff. And with the full buffs up, they could just make the team look very disgusting. They're a good option for that special pose team. I just like, in terms of their overall performance and what they're doing, again, special pose, they're restricted to just that team. That team isn't really anything crazy. On that team, though, I would say the team is pretty good, actually. Never mind, because we've gotten a lot of buffs for it. But I wouldn't say they're like, if we're comparing them like directly to like, oh, are they a top 10 LR? No, but that's not their fault. It's like the 10th best like LR in the game is like Blue Falcon, Goku, and Evolution Blue Vegeta. They're EZA, right? That's like 10 for me personally. And then I'm like, okay, there's so many good characters. He's like top 15 easily, though. He's like right on the cusp of top 10 LRs. This Ginyu, he's really good. I had fun using him as well. Just overall a good character. You just need to make sure you ran him on special pose. And the one issue at this, I think you could say, is like, okay, you could run Topo's team, but you have to run full special pose with this guy. There's arguments where, I mean, honestly, probably not even an argument. You're probably better off running UI Goku, Blue Evolution Vegeta, and then not running Ginyu than forcing yourself to run full special pose, if that makes sense, because those characters are just way better than any other special pose character you have. And if it's a thing where they get on rotation with Ginyu, he's not guarding, and then it's like he's guarding with 700k defense, right? And then it's like, oh, that's good. But then 700k defense without guard is bad, right? So that's the main difference there. I think he's kind of chill, though. He's kind of cool.
Kind of chill.
He's decent attack stats, right?
Bro's a homie. What can
I think the best thing is that it's pity, right? So it's like,
yeah,
if you really want him, you can guarantee him, which I think is very nice. So
yeah,
that's my thoughts on Ginyu. Fun character.
Yeah. I hadn't seen much on him, obviously, with him being on JP. I saw a little bit of gameplay, but I hadn't like fully read his passive, so obviously the thing with all the different supers I was a bit confused about beforehand. The one thing I will say, which I think is kind of funny, I was looking forward to seeing your thoughts on the animations, Theo, obviously, because that's your where you specialize, and I was kind of surprised because for me, when I saw their animations on Twitter, I was kind of disappointed.
Really?
Not with like the intro and the active skill and stuff. I think they're really cool. And I really like the idea of the rock, paper, scissors thing. But I feel like all of the animation that comes after that, like when the person wins the rock, paper, scissors and then does like their solo super, I just thought all of those were like really mid, like really short and boring. And it kind of gave me the mindset of like, it's almost like they copped out because they were like, well, we're giving you 5 different animations, so none of them are particularly crazy kind of thing.
Crazy.
But I mean, I don't think they'd look bad. I just think it's kind of like, they're just like very basic. Like I really like the concept of them doing it, and like the rock, paper, scissors thing is really cool. But yeah, I mean, that's not to say like I think they have bad animations or anything. And obviously, like I said, overall, like the things like the active skill and the intro and all that stuff is really cool. So yeah, I think they're a cool unit. I think they're fun. But yeah, it was one of them
that is kind of funny.
Long supers.
I feel like the only one
that's
the only animation I don't really like is the birder one.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing everybody talk about. Funny one, I think that's the one that I kind of like was in when I talked about it. I was like, this is probably like the lowest on the totem pole. Even Guldo's like stupid rocks looked.
Yeah, because the raccoon one's cool. I feel like the raccoon one has a bit of extra detail.
The raccoon is cool. I like
the other ones. Yeah,
I like Guldo's and raccoons. Jace is like decent, right? Because I kind of like the crusher ball, and then the pose is kind of interesting, right? Yeah. But I feel like the blast and Jace's one at the end is like so underwhelming compared to the rest. Maybe it's like a small little blast, and then Birder's the blast at the end looks pretty nice, but it's just him like shooting a normal key blast. Like he's about his speed, and you're not gonna like make him rush and kick someone or something. Like that could be interesting and dynamic, but he just throws a key blast. You know, I don't know. That's me though.
Nah, I understand for sure. It's like, I don't know. It's the type of thing where it's kind of funny because I feel like it's like it's hard to quantify it sometimes because it's like what's not there is the problem. I guess it's like I wish there was more. I definitely do agree though. It kind of like almost does feel like a little bit of a cop out in the way of like, you're seeing virtually the same animation of the rock paper scissors being thrown every single time, which takes up like half of the super attack, and then you're actually seeing like the actual attack happen. From that perspective, I definitely understand. I mean, more so in terms of like the like creative thought process and the actual like quality of the animation. I hate like trying to separate this word because there's not as far as I know, there's not like a good word for it in English, right? I don't mean the animations in terms of like, what you're looking at and watching on the screen. I guess I mean the way it's animated.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the actual quality of the animation itself, not like
right.
Yeah, because the animation is just what we call the super attack, but you mean like the actual animation of it, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I say their other animations are really cool. I do think they're a fun unit overall. I like that we got another new Ginyu Force unit, and like I said, I'm not super against the idea of those like supers being a little bit more on the basic side because they put in the sort of like the rock paper scissors thing and it's random and that's kind of fun. Like it kind of encapsulates like the spirit of like the characters, right? So I do quite like that, but it's more so that I think I was saying it's kind of not, it's not like I'm saying I'm surprised you think they're good because obviously they're not bad, but it's kind of, I was a bit more surprised that you're kind of like all in, like they're so great, and I was like, well, I thought they were okay, but yeah, like some of them are really good. I will say, like the active stuff is.
This is crazy. I can't catch a dub. I can't like a unit. I can't dislike a unit, bro. What do you want from me? I'm kidding. Bro, even when the one time I'm like, yeah, this is good. People are like, no, you must.
Exactly, that's what it is. You threw everybody off. We're like, wait, what? I can imagine that one day that a unit will come out and everyone will be like, okay, well, now we'll all agree with Theo when he hates this one. And then you'll turn around and be like, this is the best animation in the game.
I gotta throw him a zinger at one point, bro. Listen, I gotta keep them on their toes. I've been able to read for too long. I gotta give myself a little bit more dynamic thoughts here, it seems. But anyway, they're really cool. I'm definitely excited. For honestly, I did do one rotation on them. Unfortunately, I got absolutely shafted. Literally, like my best multi I posted on Twitter, it was like, I don't know, some random unfeatured character, and then I got Raccoon and Guldo, which I already had Rainbow. That was my best multi on the banner, by the way. So unfortunately, I was at least hoping to get like something in the one rotation that I did, but it was only like, just the one rotation, so nothing too crazy. But yeah, I do hope that my luck turns around though. Honestly, like I feel like my luck ever since Anniversary happened has not really been that good. To be fair, I haven't really summoned that much, but I didn't get like really much on Topo either, and I went like 400 stones in on him and did one rotation on these guys. So I don't know, it's hard to quantify because it's like my Anniversary luck was so mixed because I got the Gammas in 150 stones and I got Gogeta I think in like 250, but between Broly and Gohan Beast, one of which I only got one of them, which was Beast, and that was only because we had the ticket multi. Between Broly and Beast, I went over 3,000 stones and didn't get either of them from those 3,000 stones. And that number was not including the free multis, by the way, like that, count. So it's like, I don't know. It's so hard to like quantify that because it's like I got lucky, but I also definitely didn't get lucky. I don't know. But either way, though, we now. We'll move on from the funny Ginyu Force. It is going to be very interesting to see when they end up coming to Global as well. And we do have one more thing to discuss for JP before we move on to the trash take segment. But we are going to keep this a little bit short because unfortunately, been a little bit of a disappointment for most people, despite it being very, very exciting when it was announced. Of course, we are talking about the legendary Frieza event. I'm sure when this comes to global, it'll probably be called Fighting Legend Frieza, just as, you know, on global, it's called Fighting Legend Goku. This was, of course, the brand new event that we had introduced during the celebration. Of course, this is, you know, the Frieza version of the legendary Goku event, the legendary, you know, Goku GT event, right? The legendary Vegeta event. And obviously, this is an event that people have been wanting in the game for, like, literally as soon as legendary Goku dropped. People were like, dude, when's legendary Frieza coming, right? Because it's like, obviously the whole point of these legendary events is that you go through the various different forms of the character, right? And obviously, you know, like every single one of their forms, right? And with that being said, right, obviously Frieza is a character that has a lot of forms to his name. So of course he's very fitting for this, right? I mean, realistically, they could make it work with Cell, Boo, as well, right? But I think that Frieza just like seems like more of the candidate because when you think forms, I don't know, I always think of Frieza first. And not to mention, right, you know, of course, Goku and Frieza, you know, like bunch of forms and, you know, transforming Goku and Frieza is also something you kind of think about with that. So, with this event, right, obviously this is basically the Frieza version of that. Now, before I throw it over to Minato, because I know Minato has some stuff to say about this event, one thing that I did want to just kind of mention as a little bit of interesting piece of information for you about this event is that this event was apparently actually supposed to come out during the Frieza celebration. Yeah, because I know
that makes sense, I guess.
Right, it would make more sense. The homie Rick on Twitter was talking about it, right? The man with the Vegito Blue profile picture. He's also a data miner and somebody in the community who has a little bit of that inside knowledge. He's a cool cat. But right, it is interesting because he was talking about on Twitter, right, that the last modified date returned for this image is from early March, obviously talking about like the actual like promo image in the news of the legendary Frieza event. So obviously that would line up with the time where Frieza was supposed to come out, which makes sense. I do find that interesting because it just makes me wonder why it wasn't released with the Frieza celebration. Because obviously that would have been something additional that would have really been a good thing to have some more content as a part of that celebration. And it's just kind of weird, like, were they testing it? Well, I mean, we know that, you know, Dokkan doesn't test anything, but were they testing it and, you know, they just, like, decided that it wasn't ready for release, or maybe they didn't have, like, the coding done or the bosses done or something like that, right? It is a very curious little mystery that we may actually never know the answer to. Though, with that being said, right, now that we know that, it will be kind of interesting to see if this event does come with Frieza on global when that eventually comes, right? I certainly would not be surprised if that was the case. And honestly, I think that that would probably be better, honestly, right? Like, because it would be kind of weird. You know, I don't know. I guess to be fair, though, it is like the Ginyu Force, right? And obviously the Ginyu Force have some association to Frieza, but of course, that's like kind of doing a little bit of mental gymnastics to make it work there a little bit.
It would have just made more sense because obviously they EZA Bardock, who would have massively benefited from like being used in the Frieza event, right? Right. Of the Wicked Bloodline buffs and stuff. Like, it's just very really weird.
Yeah. I don't know. It is just weird. So it's funny. Maybe they're like, oh, we don't want to make people think we're gonna start a trend of dropping a difficult event every celebration. That's stupid. I don't know. But it's like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
It's weird. Yeah, it's definitely a mystery, right? Like, I genuinely think that we will probably never know the answer unless somehow they add something into the data, or, you know, they like talk about it in a producer letter or something.
Maybe it'll come out on global with the Frieza event. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm hoping so.
Imagine they like nerf the event and they're like, should we make it as hard? And then they like brought the event back and then internally like changed how difficult it was.
Gotcha.
Who knows, right?
Yeah, maybe. Like, I don't know, because obviously I know what we were going to kind of mention with this in our brief discussion of this event is I know a lot of people have been pretty disappointed with the difficulty of this event because obviously people were expecting this to be a little bit more of a difficult stage to take on, and it seems a little bit more along the lines of what you would expect. Now, obviously, it is like a new event, so it's not like exactly like Legendary Goku in terms of the difficulty, but like obviously it's not modern day level, right, when it comes down to the actual difficulty of it. So I know people are a little bit disappointed. It's kind of a mixed bag on that, right? Because I know, funny enough, me and Minato were talking about before the episode actually started, right? They never like specified in the news or anything like that this was going to be a super difficult event, because a lot of the time when they do have a new like really difficult stage coming out, they mention in the news something along the lines of like, oh, this new super difficulty stage, or like, oh, event with difficulty comparable to Red Zone or something like that, right? Where they kind of make it a point where they're like, hey, this is going to be a little hard, right? And so I know as well that like Minato was mentioning to me before, which I think is true, it is good for them to introduce content that isn't necessarily like end game level content and is a lot more accessible for players who aren't necessarily like I don't want to say on our level because we're gassing ourselves up a little bit. But,
what I would say is I think that I didn't expect the Frieza event to be difficult like that. One, because that Ender 21 event was coming on. People were like, oh my goodness, it's going to be difficult. And then it's like, that would have been nice, but then it ended up not really being that hard. They seem to like putting out, for like these normal celebrations, they don't bring out really difficult content. Like they don't, right? It's only major celebration that they put out this toughest contents in the game. Usually, right? Secondly, this is a legendary event, and I feel like it's going to be a thing where they want to keep the consistency of the general difficulty of the event. Now, obviously, the Frieza event is way harder than the GT Goku event, for example, right? But it's like not like mega different in difficulty from the Vegeta event. It's harder for sure, but like it's more of a midterm difficulty fight. And I think that's good for players where it's like those, again, medium, like, account players that maybe can't be all the difficult content in the game. They have something to do, right? Something a little fun. There is, how do I explain? It's like a thing where maybe that player is like, oh, I beat the Vegeta event finally. Let me try the Frieza event. And it's like a Blue Zone difficulty, and it's like 5 times as hard. I just think that we want to keep like a general streamline of it, where it's like, okay, these are the events we know are hard, and these the events that people will know are this difficulty based on their naming, right? To me, that just makes a lot of sense with keeping consistency, streamlining it. So I didn't expect the event to actually be 9th anniversary difficulty hard. But I know a lot of people did want it to be really difficult, and maybe it would have been nice if it was that difficult. I mean, if it was that difficult, it would have been good for me. Personally, I would have been fine with it. But it's not what I anticipated. So I think I only really expect from now on, what I'm only going to expect is like really difficult fights from
the anniversary,
worldwide anniversary, Tanabata, those events, rather than an April Dokkan Fest Part 2, right?
Exactly.
So that's me.
Yeah, so like I said a similar sort of thing, obviously not having played it, but I've heard people talk about it, and I talked about it a little bit on the stream I did earlier today. It's kind of like when they the fact that they still every now and then bring out like infinite Dragon Ball history stages or something, right? It's like it's kind of just like a fun event you can play where you don't have to bring like, oh, I have to bring my team of like my best units, because the event's like super hard. You can just bring a slightly different, like slightly more fun team. And then obviously it's something that they can add missions to in the future, like they've done with the Goku and Vegeta event. So you can try out like other categories and like teams that you wouldn't necessarily use all the time. Sometimes it is just kind of fun to play an event that isn't as hard. And it's not like, you can't bring in a team of like unawakened like URs and just waltz through it, but you don't have to bring like your best units, otherwise you struggle to win, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
we will bring the Humvees.
Yeah, I think it's good to have those kind of events that are just fun. Because then like the global players can bring their like Wrath of the Dragon theme teams and stuff, right? So yeah, it's cool to have those missions that those events that aren't as hard. So yeah, I think it's a cool thing to have in the game. It is weird, like I said, that they've released it when they did, so it'd be interesting to see if that changes for global at all. But yeah, it's interesting. It's cool to have something nice to get some extra missions added for. Isn't it? I think it was Truth mentioned it earlier, but compared to all the other legendary events that we have, the final stage doesn't disable dodge, which all the other ones do, which I thought was kind of interesting.
So what happens
kind of makes it easier.
Funny enough, the EGO full power Frieza part of the fight is harder than the last phase, the Golden Frieza fight.
Oh, right.
The reason why is because he has a like attack and defense buff. I think it's like 150% extra attack, which ends up being a lot. Whoa, no way, right? So that Frieza actually does hit pretty hard overall. I think it's 150% attack. So he's hitting for about 1.7 mil on the super. That AGO full power Frieza. Then he's hitting for about I think 700k normals or so, which is more in line of like Red Zone, but it's specifically that one phase that you built up to. And then the final phase again goes back to 800k damage relatively with no dodge disable. So I think that's the gimmick right there. I don't know if they like thought properly with that phase, right? The EGO full power phase. I don't know if that's intentional because for him to hit as hard as he is, not that he's like, again, I feel like that's closer to pre-9th anniversary difficulty, which in that sense that Frieza is hitting basically Fusions of Masu physical phase numbers, right? But it's only for 2 turns, so and this event lets you use all items, so like you just use a Whis and then you're good, right?
You're cooking, baby.
So I think that's a little difference there, and you could also just like one turn that Frieza instantly. So that's just something I wanted to point out about that EGL phase that I think no one's really talking about. It's a lot harder than the final phase. So again, it's really weird that it's just like it has the extra attack and defense boost, and it's just like wildly harder than everything else in that event. It's kind of funny, but whatever.
The only thing that I wanted to mention more before we wrap up about Frieza-sama is the one thing that I guess we could look forward to in terms of a little bit more like difficulty. And now I don't want to like get my hopes up, considering last time I literally made a tweet saying I was disappointed with how they handled it. So I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket, but obviously we did get a burst mode for the legendary Goku event in the past.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool, right? So I'm kind of hoping that maybe they'll do that again, except this time they'll make it, actually like good. They'll make it like more difficult, right? Because I do think that would be cool. And obviously burst mode is like the perfect chance for basically any event to have a little bit more like relevance once again. In terms of being a little bit more difficult like that. I do kind of wish, I don't know, I really wish there was like a burst mode archive or something where you could go back and play those, because I would love if like that was a more like long-standing thing where you could go back and play that more difficult version of the Legend of Goku event, even though it's not that difficult, but you know what I mean. But anyway, yeah, so there is still some hope for sure that, that does come in clutch, and then, we potentially like obviously could get that. And then have that be a little bit more difficult. Again, I'm not going to be banking on it, considering the, the precedent that the burst mode for the legendary Goku event has set. But that is definitely something that we could see, in the future from this. Obviously, that will definitely be a long, long, long way off, I'm sure. But But to be fair, I guess it's probably going to happen sooner than later, all things considered, because obviously, I mean, burst mode was introduced not like recently, but like definitely more recently than, obviously like other things. And, obviously they did the Legendary Goku event, it's so old and whatever. So you understand my point. Obviously, at some point, I'm sure that they'll probably, right, like do it in like a little bit more recent time than, maybe, what do you call it? And could be expected. But regardless, though, hopefully we will see that in the future. I'm definitely pretty excited to see when they, eventually do that and what the result of that will be. But we now move on to our final section of the day, or I always say final section of the day, but it's really not, because we have the donation section at the end. But the technical final section of the day, right, of course, being our trash takes. Now, I was the one who picked the trash take this week. There's a very specific reason why I picked this trash take. Because there was something that when I read it, I literally went, huh?
I have not seen it, by the way. So.
Yeah, well, good. I was really curious about this one because I wanted to hear your guys' opinion about this, because I know I was like a little confused on what was meant by this as far as I was understanding it anyway. So I think this will be a little bit interesting one. But if you want to throw it on screen, go ahead. I'll wait for the funny YouTube to load up. There we go. So from Crush Commando 64, by the way, unfortunately, we do not have a little bit of a DLC explanation for this one, but dodge is the best offensive and defensive mechanic because you avoid being stunned or sealed and are able to do damage to the enemy and take 0 damage. Minato's face, right? So oh man, yeah. Let me know. Let me know. What do you think?
So this is like this general thing where it's like these bosses started seeing. I think it was me who like started bringing up, but like, okay, well, dodge got even stronger now because of the fact because I was talking about like people. I made a point where I was like, I think Blue Gogeta's standby, like not standby, his target skill, active skill is the strongest one in the game, because you dodge and these bosses, seal and stun you. And I would say, like, I see what they're thinking of, because the thing is that all these bosses nowadays, they seal, stun, attack lower, right? Beast Gohan stuns you, Blue Gogeta seals you, Sword Hope Trunks stuns you, right? A lot of these bosses do all these different mechanics. So it's a thing where if you get sealed or stunned, you don't do damage at all. Like, you just don't do damage. Well, if you dodge it, then you could end up actually doing damage, right? So a dodge, we already know, is, I would say dodge is the second best defensive mechanic. I think, like, if you have like 90% reduction, that's the best defensive mechanic. But like dodge innately, like, is really good. So the thing is, obviously, that I see the thought process. I wouldn't agree with it. Because again, you could have dodge,
really
you dodge it, and then you do like 500k damage because you don't have crits, right? Like, you still need those offensive. Like, I think guaranteed crit is the best offensive mechanic. Well, would it be like guaranteed additional supers, like additional super attacks? It's just hard. I probably would be crit. Like, I would take like a guaranteed crit 20 mil over 2 20 mil supers, maybe. Like, that don't have crit, if that makes sense, right? Just that's because that crit does so much. But it's just where I see the point where dodge is actually a strong offensive mechanic as well, in a sense where you don't get sealed and then you could actually do damage compared to getting sealed and doing nothing. If he's talking about like best in terms of like, okay, which mechanic is best in both categories at the same time? Like, if you had to rank ability that's good defensively and offensively, like crit doesn't necessarily do anything for you offensively, but dodge, you'll be able to do damage and then you take 0 damage, right? So it's an interesting take. I think it's kind of cool if you think about it that way, right? It's like a different way of thinking it, because you could say that and people are like, what is dodge going to do for you offensively? But that dodge is so huge for you to do damage in those events specifically.
True.
right? But not every event is going to be able to seal or stun you, right? So it depends on the situation. But I'm interested to hear what you think, Token Assets, because you're like, huh? When you first saw that.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think.
Because the reason why is because, like, I don't know, obviously thinking about dodge as a offensive mechanic is really interesting, right? I understand your like explanation. It makes a little bit more sense when you explain it that way, right? In terms of like, obviously it's like dodge is an offensive mechanic because of the fact that, then or the best offensive mechanic because then you can still attack, right? Obviously, like if you were going to get sealed or stunned.
Oh, well, I do want to point out is that I wish I got clarification. This person might mean best in, like, if there's a category where it's like offense and defense, not offense and then defense separately, but together, right?
What do you mean?
I think, like, how do I explain it? Where if it's like, let's say category 1 is offensive, category 2 is defensive, category 3 is offense and defense. Like, which mechanic provides best to both of those?
I see.
That could be what this guy is trying to say. And in that case, I would agree. Because against these most difficult bosses specifically anyways.
I gotcha.
Because if you dodge, you still are able to do damage if you get sealed or stunned, right? Well, it's like if you crit, it's like most units, if you crit, you're not going to necessarily just one-shot the boss, and then it's like, oh, defense doesn't matter because I one-shot them. Well, with dodge, any character will be able to do their damage if they dodge, right? No matter what the damage is. I think
I gotcha. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think it's just like, for me, I definitely like think that this guy is like in the right mindset. I think the only thing for me is it's always like we like to pick apart the wording of these takes. I think it's just that saying that dodge is the best offensive mechanic just doesn't seem right to me, because I feel like the reason why I would think that is because it's more so that is only the case, or that like mindset, or like you being able to say that is more so like, this is gonna, I don't know if this sounds like dumb, but it sounds correct in my head, is more like the result. Because obviously, like, when you're dodging, right, that's not the offensive, like, aspect of it, right? It's the fact that because you dodged, now you can attack. So it's like, with that logic, it's almost like, Well,
the thing is that you have to think that, that's the extra thing that happens because you dodge. Because you dodge, you do attack.
Yes.
I would group that together, because if you don't dodge, you don't do damage.
I think the problem is
it's because of the dodge mechanic that you did it, right?
Yeah, I think the problem is it blurs the line between the two distinctions of offense and defense, because you could, in that same metric, like if we're going to say that dodge is technically an offensive mechanic because it allows you to dodge being stunned and therefore you can attack, then the other side of that same coin is then I can say that crit is a defensive mechanic, because if I get a crit and kill the enemy, he doesn't get to hit me, therefore I've defended myself from dying. So, isn't dodge, I think Mega Nice actually said it in the chat perfectly. Dodge isn't an offensive mechanic. Not getting stunned or sealed because you dodged an attack is the benefit of dodge being a defensive mechanic.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Against being stunned or sealed, right? So
isn't the whole... Sorry. Because there's this one thing I'm thinking of. Like, isn't it the whole saying of, like, offense is the best defense?
Yeah, good defense is the best offense, and like vice versa. Right? Yeah, it's like they do go hand in hand, but it's like, it's like dodge isn't. It's like a weird. You just get into kind of like it's like a cyclical loop, right? Because it's like you're able to attack because you dodged, but the dodging is the defensive mechanic, right? And then you're able to attack afterwards. So because you dodged, you're then able to do damage. but the dodge itself is not like an offensive ability, right? It's kind of like
yeah.
it's
So I
just all
see the
parts
point
of
there exactly.
the tools
Right?
Yeah,
in your
that-
toolkit kind of
So
thing.
the dodge itself isn't the one that's doing the damage, but the thing is that like if you crit, you could still I think crit and then you could die. But then if you dodge, because of the dodge and the super attack, then you could actually do the damage. Whereas if you don't dodge, you can't do damage. And it's like if you don't crit, it's not like if you crit or don't crit and then you just die anyways, and that just happens, right? Crit doesn't like save you from defending unless you actually kill the enemy in that scenario. Whereas I feel like getting super attacked is going to be a much more common thing to occur. So then if you dodge the super attack more commonly, then you actually do more damage consistently, right? So I see the point, and it depends on how you want to think about it.
I was gonna say it's like the semantics of it, basically, right?
Yeah, the semantics of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I like this take. I think it's a pretty interesting kind of thing. It's not like a bad take, but it's like I guess you could see it as a bad take because you're like dodge doesn't do damage, so it's obviously like a terrible offensive mechanic. Why would you say this? Well, as I'm like me, like that's kind of what like Ningen is thinking, right? And I think that's a fair point, but I'm thinking because I dodge, I do damage, and dodge is the reason I did damage, or else I wouldn't have done anything in the first place. But dodge helps me offensively as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think you could say something can help with your offense or can add to your offense, but like without being an offensive ability in and of itself, right? It's like,
well, I think that's the thing was like crits adds to offense.
Yeah,
as well. Additionals add to offense. Dodge would add to the damage because you do that. You would do 5 supers instead of like with Broly. If you dodge a super that steals them, you do 5 super attacks, and that adds to the damage compared to if you didn't dodge, you do 5 normals, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like
interesting discussion, right? Because I think you would say the dodge is by itself, and because you know what I mean. You do more damage, right? But it's only in those events specifically. So that's why I'm like kind of weird.
That's why it's that's why the take kind of even exists, right? It's because we are now getting bosses that will do that, and it's like it's one of the things that I talk about being on global because of Omega is like Tech Omega very often super attacks in slot 1. And unfortunately, you can't dodge against him, but he stuns or seals you. So you have some of these characters like on certain teams like Tech Vegeta and things like that, where you want them to be in slot 1, but you also want them to be getting attacks. And so if they get stunned immediately by a super, then they can't do one of their main things. So obviously in events where you can dodge, if they dodge that super, they're then able to attack and get those extra like stacks or extra like damage off and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it is, like I say, for me it comes down to just like the splitting hairs of like the wording itself, like what you call an ability, because dodge is by definition a defensive ability, and then if you dodge an ability if you dodge an attack that would stun you, the dodge hasn't suddenly become an offensive ability. It's just the fact that because it's such a good defensive ability, you're now still able to then use your offensive ability. So they do go hand in hand. It's all part of the same sort of like the same toolkit. But yeah, it's just kind of weird to, like I say, because I think the example that I gave like sums up the way I would think about it, because as I said, I mean, I'll just repeat it again essentially, but it's like if you're going to say dodge is offensive because it allows you to attack because you avoid getting stunned, then on the exact same flip side, then you can just say crit is a defensive ability because it allows you to kill the enemy before they can attack you. So
I know you meant offensive as in like attacking. Yeah. I know you meant offensive as in like attacking, but the way you said it, it's like, yeah, I'm offended by dodge.
I'd say I saw JC Gamer say something where additionals could help with defense because of super attack effects, but that's not on every character, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's say every single character, if you get hit with a super attack, you either, let's say every single character against Blue Goju is super. If you get hit with a super, every single character in the game either dies or lives and gets sealed. But then every single character in the game, if they dodge the super, they live and do damage, and then they don't get sealed and can do damage. That happens with every character, no matter what character you are.
Yeah.
You will end up doing more damage if you dodge the super and don't get sealed. Whilst not every character with additionals is going to get defense on super or any useful super attack mechanic, right? So I think that's the idea behind it. Not every unit is going to do good damage, but every single unit is going to do more damage if you don't get sealed because of the dodge. So the dodge is the I forgot the word for it, but the dodge is a starting point that will lead you to doing more damage, which I think because the dodge did it, that's why you're doing damage. So you could contribute your damage because of the dodge.
Yeah.
Well, it adds to it, which I think, again, if you're saying a mechanic that'll provide you both offense and defense, which mechanic does the best of both worlds at the same time, then it would arguably be dodge. But then if it's a thing where you're saying dodge is the best offensive mechanic in that single category and the best defensive mechanic in that single category, I would disagree, because dodge is not the best at either of those separately. Right?
Yeah, because otherwise it's like you're saying, because essentially it's like if you had a character that has even like 90% damage reduction, like they might not take a lot of damage from those supers, but they'll still get stunned or sealed.
Just like the LR Gammas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
many times I had LR Gammas in Cell 1, they live Blue Gogeta Super, they live Beast Gohan Super, Sword of Hope Trunks for like under 100k damage at most. But then they get stunned. So then because they get stunned, they can't even provide some of the defense utility. They give a 2-turn defense raise for 50%, right? Then on top of that, they can't do like their 3 super attack.
yeah.
So, I think, that, again, it comes down to how you really think about it, how technical you get to it. But I would agree with this take in terms of my perception of it and my interpretation.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about, like, again, because it kind of comes down to how it's worded, if we're talking about it, like, as you said, if we're talking about which ability is the best of both worlds, like, put together, then because it's a defensive ability that can directly affect offense, then I guess that does make sense. But yeah, if you were separating them into two separate, like, if it was almost like if there was a comma, if it was like dodge is the best defensive ability, comma, dodge is the best offensive ability too, then like I would say no, right?
That'd be a bad take.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be a bad take, because like that's not even true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I definitely think that this has brought about a good discussion, so I'm glad. I think that, like, the only thing that I would say, I guess, is that, like, I know that we're obviously talking about with the, like, whole dodge thing is that, like, oh, well, you know, obviously if you dodge, then, you know, you're able to super because maybe you would have died. But then I feel like you could also apply the same logic to just like raw defense if that's what keeps you alive, right? Where it's like,
well, with the raw defense, there's like you get sealed, right? And then
I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess.
Because
I guess so.
There's no.
I feel like if that wasn't it, though, like, you know what I mean? Like if you were just taking like a bunch of fat damage and you survived it from just raw defense, and you could say that, but obviously, yeah, if you're taking the seals and the stuns into account,
if
like
bosses didn't seal or stun, then but they can, and that's the main.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if the newer bosses didn't start doing that, this take just wouldn't exist at all, right?
It would not.
True. So,
yeah. But either way, though, I'm glad that you guys liked this one. I thought it was very interesting. Definitely brings in a good discussion. Wow, a civilized discussion about the dodge agenda. This is a crazy day. Thank you for your trash take, Crush Commando. As you can see with the poll there, YouTube doesn't like to do math correctly, but it is a W take 60%. And a L take 39%. I'm honestly kind of surprised it wasn't a little bit higher W, considering how many people are saying W, to be honest. But that's the numbers. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for participating. Thank you for submissions, as always. Of course, if you guys would like to participate in this in the future, definitely go follow us on Twitter, the Slot One Super Podcast. Every single Wednesday, we have a tweet going up asking for your trash takes, and then we pick one for the week. So definitely make sure to have our notifications on for those funny takes so you can participate. With that being said, we are going to move on to our final section of today's show. Of course, we are talking about the donations and the super chats and whatnot. Thank you for all of your support throughout the stream. And Ningen obviously has those queued up to read. So, my friend, go ahead and take it away.
So we've got a shout out to Socrates, a couple of gifted memberships here, and then a super chat, $5. He says, I'm sure this will be answered at the end, hopefully, but what's your feeling about the EZAs coming to global early? So, because obviously we touched on it when talking about the Ink Gotenks, we don't know what's going on with the sub EZAs and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. I mean, for the most part, I think it's probably always a W, right? Like, speaking as a global player. It does, I guess, it kind of depends what they replace it with, which is what we talked about earlier, right? Like, if there's, Minato speculating about the Peppy Gal's EZA thing being same time, so they've replaced it with another Extreme Z battle. That's kind of cool. The thing that makes it weird is when they take content from one celebration, and then when it comes out on global, they don't actually replace it with anything, which would be odd. But considering the timing that Topo is potentially going to come out, like, we're going to be very close to the sync at that point, so they're potentially going to drop a whole bunch of stuff all at the end at the same time anyway, which will kind of fill out the gaps that were left by that Ink Gotenks EZA. So I think it's, for the most part, I would say it's a W when the stuff comes to global early, because, that's, I guess chief complaint for global players, right, is just having to wait so long once you've seen like cool stuff come out on JP. So whenever it comes out early, I would say that's pretty much always a W. So shout out to Socrates. Shout out to Chili, who re-upped his channel membership as well. Stay safe, everyone, doing the world tournament. Yep, we're still on that grind. I think I'm almost in the top 600 now, so I feel like it's nowhere near as sweaty as it has been in some of the ones in the past. Not surprised.
I feel like people are exhausted.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not surprised considering the last one wasn't that long ago. So even if people did go crazy in the last one because it was the first one with Pilaf, they probably are like, nah, I'm good for this one, maybe. So, but yeah, shout out to Chili. Shout out to Drace for the $5, who says, I know people want LR Kid Buu, but I think he would be better as a Dokkan Fest LR than a Yellow Coin LR, even if he was Bulma level. That's interesting. I have thoughts on that, but yeah, what do you think? Yeah,
the thing is that, like, let's say if he is Bulma level, I get like there's the title of him being a Dokkan Fest LR hype, but if he's Bulma level, then that means that on release he's the best in the game.
Yeah,
and he has pity, so you're able to get him so much easier. There's pity and guaranteed featured steps where you can get him multiple times. So if he's going to be the best unit in the game regardless, you want him on that format where it's your guarantee to get him, right? Isn't it? I don't know if I'm crazy, but
that is basically exactly what I was going to say, right? Because for me, I don't care necessarily if the unit is like if we talk about LRs specifically, Dokkan Fest exclusive, Yellow Coin, or Carnival, like, I don't really care necessarily which one it is. I care that the unit is good. So if Kid Buu comes out, and if we're saying, Bulma level, like you said, basically means he comes out and he's potentially the best unit in the game, then to me, it doesn't really matter what type of LR he is.
Right.
Then, if he's Carnival, that's its own thing. If he's Dokkan Fest, that's his own thing. But if he's Yellow Coin, that means he'll be on a banner that has pity, which means you're actually more likely to be able to get him without going crazy with a whole bunch of
Ain't that ironic?
Yeah, because...
it's a situation where, again, usually Yellow Coin LRs aren't like gonna be the best units in the game, right? So that's why I think if you just said that, I'm like, yeah, I get that, right? Because Dokkan Fest and Carnivals usually end up very good, but then if they're gonna be the best unit in the game anyways, then why wouldn't you want a Yellow Coin, right?
Yeah, it's almost like if the card's going to come out and be the new best LR in the game, you want them to be a Yellow Coin LR because they're the easiest ones to pull.
That's so weird.
Yeah, weird. Funny. But yeah, very interesting. If as long as the card's good, like I said, I don't really mind what kind of unit they are necessarily. But yeah, be interesting to see if we do ever finally get an LR Kid Buu. Who knows? Maybe Golden Week is going to be...
They have to, man.
At this point, I feel like it's almost like, at this point, somebody Akatsuki, like someone at Akatsuki knows, and they're just like, nah, you guys are never getting it now. You've joked about it for so long, we're just not giving it to you. So,
bro, I can totally see them, like, they have the unit completely done, and like they just are like, nah.
It's the office joke. It's like every couple of months they update his kit like on the database so that if he was to drop, he'd be the best unit in the game. But then they just keep not releasing it.
Oh man, that'd be funny.
But yeah, that'd be awesome.
What a goofy goober.
But But yeah, shout out to Drace. Shout out to Socrates again with the $5. He says, I don't know if this will get mentioned. We actually didn't mention this at all. What does everyone think about boss crits coming to Dokkan? So,
oh yeah, we did forget to talk about that.
Didn't really talk about it because so yeah, I don't know.
We don't have any information on it, really.
Okay, because my big question was going to be: is it like crits, that we have, where
from what I heard, yes.
So so basically, any time the boss super attacks you, there's like a certain percentage chance that it could be a crit. I don't know how they'll apply how that works in application, but to me, the idea of that sounds terrible. Like, imagine going into an event and you've got even let's say you have a scouter ability active. And you're like, right, this unit can tank this super. They're the only unit I've got on the rotation that can tank the super. But if the boss crits, I'll still die. And then you're just completely still in the hands of RNG. It's like, well, I hope the boss doesn't crit, otherwise I'm just dead now. Like, I think that's how it works, I think that would be kind of crazy. But
I guess it depends on what units you have, because in that situation, I don't think it's as big of a deal. But maybe that's just me coming from the thought of like, oh, well, if we consider you have many options. It just means that in that situation, why would I bring a character that's like damage reduction tanking instead of just bringing a dodge character that just would take 0 damage? And then if he dies to a super, it doesn't matter if he crits or not. It's a dodge that would get me the win anyways, right? I have to dodge regardless. So then the crits don't matter. Well, Blue Evolution is a bad example. Because I think if it's the very first attack he takes, and it also depends on let's say, because if it makes your defense 0, right, damage reduction will still work. It doesn't do anything against damage reduction. So if the boss hits for 800k damage, but then he brings your defense to 0, if you have 50% reduction, you're still only taking 400k damage, so you still live. It depends on if the boss is going to how do I explain it? It depends on how hard the boss is going to hit. Yeah. Because if the boss is hitting for 300k, if they crit, it doesn't really matter. For these mega reduction characters or dodge characters, let's say Blue Gogeta. But then if they're hitting for 1.5 mil, then yeah, that's an issue, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying we can't really jump the gun now, because we have to see what it's applied to rather than the mechanic in itself, which is why I think people are jumping the gun. I still made a video talking about could this kill the game, because it's funny, but we'll have our final judgments, I think, when it's actually in game.
Yeah.
It should be for Golden Week though. Okay. I think because we know they did announce in the timeline that Golden Week time is when they're going to start introducing new enemy abilities.
Yeah.
That checks out. Yeah.
I also saw another thing that someone said it, one of the data miners in a group chat I was in, but they mentioned about characters having the ability to change the crit percentage of bosses as well, which they did mention they were going to release characters to combat this.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say, because if they started making it so that for example, guard meant that they couldn't be crit or something, if they were to do stuff like cool. That'd be kind of helpful as well, right? So
yeah, if they made it universal for god characters.
Yeah,
but I think it might be more of a thing where how domains cancel territory skills, and I think that's the whole idea behind domains, where they introduce them, then later on during the 9th anniversary there's territory skills, domains can cancel them out. Maybe there will be some sort of mechanic, or maybe just characters in their passive having a way to just stop or just negate enemy crits.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's lowers enemy crit chance by 30%. And then if that boss has a chance of 30% to crit their super, then instead it can't crit you at all.
Yeah.
Which I think many people wouldn't like at first, but then as they introduce more characters, it'll become more generalized. But then you can also think of it as a thing where, well, why introduce crit in the first place if there's going to be characters that could just negate it, right?
So it's also kind of a weird thing, because it's kind of it's a different way of redoing the same problem depending on how they do it, because it's one of the people's biggest issues is new bosses obviously just hitting harder and harder and harder, but now it's instead of the actual attack stat, which although we don't see the boss's attack stat, it's like rather than the attack stat going up, it's just they're giving them the ability to crit. So it's essentially still kind of doing the same thing, if that's how it ends up working. Though,
but because I think the thing is, let's say old characters that used to be dodge or die, if the attack stats are lower, then they won't be dodge or die anymore. So you could also theoretically get more options. A character like EZA Gotenks Frieza. At this point, these supers hit him so hard, but then even with the 90% reduction that he has, right, like the T-War, maybe you could have more use for him because these attack values aren't as high and he has no defense anyways, right? So it gets to a point where maybe you could see different types of units in play because of those attack values are lower. And I think that's where a difference could come in as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see how exactly they implement it. And then once we've seen how they implement it, it'll be a case of how then do they keep it going and what, if anything, do they do to counteract it? So I guess it's something that we just kind of have to wait and see. It will be cool to see if it does come with Golden Week. So yeah, I guess we'll find out fairly soon. So shout out to Socrates for that one. Shout out to Dr. Pritch with the $30 super chat. Appreciate you, my dude. Has anyone made an ongoing tier list of the World Tournament EZA units yet? People who want to know who to prioritize for those EZA supplies would be nice, I think. I don't know if anyone has done one. I know I haven't done one.
The thing is, most World Tournament units, they're like, okay.
Yeah, and it's like there's a couple that are worth it, and then all of the rest are just kind of like, eh.
I think the ones that are good, the people will know are good, like the EZA Gohan.
Let the people know.
I think it's because every time we get a batch of World Tournament EZAs, if one of them is really good, that's the one that people go on about and you see people talking about. And then if they're not talking about the other ones, it's because they're not very good.
It's like right now it's like Mr. Boo and that Super Saiyan Gohan, and that's it. High School Gohan's decent, but he wasn't as good as we all hoped he would be.
Yeah, unfortunate. But yeah, maybe it could be something to think about in the future. It'd be interesting to see what happens once they're all EZA'd, but obviously that's going to be a while because, you know, we just got the Bojack Awakening on Global, so it's going to be a couple of years till he gets his one. I wonder what they're going to do once we get to that, because I think I don't want to go off into a whole other huge tangent, but it's like the fact we don't get new World Tournament cards anymore because now we're getting the old ones EZA, and then there's still a couple that need to awaken. But yeah, be interesting to see what they do with that. So
I wonder, you saying that made this like click in my mind. I wonder if that will finally be the end of the World Tournament. Like, I wonder, if, and I'm not saying that because I'm like praying on the World Tournament's downfall, I swear, but like genuinely, like it makes me curious if, they've heard the criticisms of the World Tournament and they just don't want to put in the effort or whatever the case is, right, to actually like fix it and improve it to be something a little bit more intriguing. I mean, they've made quality of life changes, absolutely, right, but they haven't like just straight up changed the game mode like people have really wanted.
Yeah.
So it almost makes me wonder if like, they would just then get rid of the game mode, because it's like at that point, I mean, obviously that's a lot of dragon stones that you're losing out on. But if we, take away the fact of the dragon stones, right, it's like, well, now there's no real purpose because all the characters from it are EZA'd. I mean, there is also obviously the banner to think about, right, like the actual World Tournament, like free characters that you get with the tickets and stuff like that. So there's a lot of logistical stuff that you would have to think about when taking something like that into consideration, for sure.
Yeah.
But it does make me wonder if they'll just like nuke the World Tournament when that happens, or if maybe that will be like when it gets the proper revamp that we've been hoping for.
Potentially. Yeah, I guess
if it happens, come back to this episode. I'm a prophet.
I guess we'll see. So shout out to Dr. Pritch. Shout out to Drace for the $2. He says Super Saiyan 3 Broly Super EZA, the savior of Dokkan. I mean,
facts.
Facts. The Super EZA for him is their last chance, right? Because he wasn't good on release. His EZA wasn't good. So hopefully.
Now hold on, brother. EZA. Hold on. We know now that they're willing to do Super EZAs. What's to say by anniversary 20 they're not doing super
duper EZA? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess you never know, but I mean, the thing is, as we said with Gotenks, right, they kind of keep the spirit of the original unit. So even with a Super EZA, I'm not sure what they would do necessarily that could make him good. The only thing I could think of is like because he lowers defense with each orb that he picks up, but he is like a nuking style unit, so you want to pick up a lot of orbs for him to do like more damage. I think the only thing they could kind of add in, like he could still lose that defense as he picks up orbs, but maybe he could get like damage reduction or something, right? Because then even if he loses most of his defense, if he has a high damage reduction percentage, then he could potentially still be okay. And they don't change super attack effects, but they can still add things into the passive, like giving him like, you know, gets 200% defense on super or something. But yeah, I don't know. Super Saiyan 3 Broly EZA. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see it be good, but
super duper easy.
Yeah, I don't know if I hold out much hope, unfortunately, for our boy. Maybe one day we'll get a new Super Saiyan 3 Broly and he can be good, but
that'd be fire.
I guess we'll see. I'm always up for Super Saiyan 3 buffs, so we'll see.
Super Saiyan 3 is pretty cool. I mean, this could be their Super Saiyan 3. We're getting a lot of them.
Yep, we got a couple of Super Saiyan 3 hero EZAs for heroes this year, the Gotenks and Gotenks. Yeah. So
I'm thinking of Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku for the Golden Week celebration.
Yeah.
So that could be another buff, right?
Dude, if they drop another Super Saiyan 3 Goku so quickly, especially then for global.
If it was the Angel Goku, then I think that would be good, right?
But, yeah, no, it's Angel Goku. Yeah, it's Angel.
Yeah, but bro, the only difference is he got a halo on his head, bro.
The important difference is he got a different name. Yeah,
that's true. That
is the main thing.
That's the important thing. There's Super EZA for Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta as well, right?
Yep,
he's another character that's upcoming. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very true. So we'll see. Maybe one day Super Saiyan 3. Super Saiyan 3 needs buffs, man. I love that team, but
it does.
We'll see. So shout out to Dre. Shout out to Philip Rodriguez for the 5 gifted memberships as well. Appreciate you. We then have a super chat from Weeb of Class for the $10. Where's your wild card prediction for Golden Week? My personal picks are Trunks versus Future 17 and 18, or Great Saiyan Man versus Dabura. I've seen a couple of people say that before for a Dual Dokkan Fest. In terms of one that is a very wild card pick, because I know we've discussed, I think the last 2 episodes in a row, we've talked about potential Golden Week picks, but we kind of have been a bit more on the realistic side, or the what would we most like to see, even if it's unlikely. But I think this one is specifically more of a, what do you think is like a Dual Dokkan Fest that's a lot less likely, but could potentially be quite cool. So yeah, I don't know if either of you guys have one off the dome, but
Piccolo versus second form Frieza.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Namek.
Oh,
okay.
Where it's like you could be transforming Frieza into third form, because we don't have, in good animations, we don't have Frieza transforming to second form. In good animations, we don't have Frieza that transforms to third form. We don't have good animations of second form. That whole part of Frieza, we don't have at all. Piccolo fusing into now, we have that old free-to-play character, but getting like a Piccolo from that fight could be good. There's not really a spectacular Piccolo named character, even though I know like a year or 2 ago we got like so many Piccolos. Right now, none of them are really spectacular. So getting like a Dokkan Festival Piccolo could be really cool. Maybe it could even be a nail that exchanges into Piccolo or something.
Yeah, I saw someone say, I don't know if it was in a previous episode or just in a random stream, but like a nail that revives into Piccolo, who like comes along and fuses with him as like the revival. That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting for sure.
Sick.
I mean, I think that Frieza buffs for the Frieza team, I think that's, again, a wild card random throwing out there that I think could be really cool. I mean, my idea for Worldwide is Namek Saga. And to be honest, that's my idea for, like, if they want to do, like, Dual Dokkan Fest and do Dual Carnival, if maybe they want to switch back and forth between that format, right? Then it could be, like, a Dual Carnival for Part 2, second for Frieza, and Revive Nail. And then Part 1 is, like, how can Goku that transforms into Super Saiyan, then Frieza into full power, but that's just a whole other thing. That's going off tangent.
Theo, any sort of lower likelihood Dual Dokkan Fest that you think would be kind of cool?
Yeah, well, the Minato actually saying this kind of gave me this idea. First of all, I know I've said it in the past like 3 episodes, but of course, TM versus Goku, that's really what I want to happen. But even though I think that is unrealistic, unfortunately, obviously I've talked about that like a bunch of times by now. So low key, actually hearing that with Piccolo, this is a dual Dokkan Fest that I personally wanted for a real fat minute, and I know we've almost been like
I think I know
teased it. Yeah, Piccolo versus 17. Yeah,
I'll take
like
that.
dude, it's such a cool fight, right? When they're literally just beating each other up, right? And like giving each other the gut punches. I always always remember rather the TFS scene of it where it's like this fight is straight out of Looney Tunes, and 16's like, I like the Road Runner. That scene is so funny.
Yeah, that's one of those like we've mentioned it before, because it's like there's those couple of fights in Z that are not just people throwing giant key blasts and actually have some really good like scenes of people just straight throwing hands, and like that Piccolo versus 17 one is really good for that. And of course I think it's the first and possibly only, I can't remember, time in the series where he does the proper way he uses like the Hellzone grenade, and it looks really cool. So yeah, that's really awesome. I'd be down for that. I think one that I think is kind of a wild card one. People have mentioned it, but I just think it's kind of, because it's a very obscure one and they've only done it in the game. They've only really represented it in the game like once ever. So I think like Super Kaioken Goku versus Pikkon would be a pretty cool. That's cool. Dokkan Fest.
Listen, I can't agree with that, only for the fact that, man, that one Legend celebration where it was Pikkon versus Super Kaioken Goku, I summoned on that. I got absolutely shafted, and both of those units were garbage. I'm resentful of that.
Well, yeah, I think for Golden Week that could be cool, and then obviously they could EZA like the old ones. I think that could be quite interesting, but yeah, definitely more of a wild card pick. So. But yeah, hopefully, of course, by next week we should actually know exactly what's going on for Golden Week, so that's good. So yeah, we'll be able to talk about it in a bit more detail on the next episode. So shout out to Weave of Class for that one. Shout out to Philip Rodriguez for the $5 super chat. He says, why do they never let the Ginyu Force be a support for Namek Frieza? He's just out on an island all by himself. Also, 3 LR Ginyu before 1 Kid Buu. True.
Dude,
but yeah.
When somebody brought that to my attention the other day, I was like, whoa.
I mean,
there's no way.
There's 3 LR Babidis.
Yeah.
LR Babidi Mind Vegeta, Babidi Deborah, Babidi and Boo, which by the way could EZA if Golden Week is a Saga.
But yeah, in terms of the first part, it's kind of weird because it's like, the Ginyu Force are like Frieza's top henchmen, right? Like his elite specialist, like SAS squad. And like they don't really like ever link with him or provide support or anything like that, which is kind of weird. It's one of those things because there's that link, isn't there? I don't think they even have it, to be fair, but there's that link like Frieza's army that like 5 characters have or something. Like it'd be nice if that was more of a team, right? Like him and his squad, right? Which is another thing, like another side tangent, Dokkan Fest Zarbon so Ginyu Force always for some reason very disjointed from Frieza, which is a bit weird, but and then 3 LR Ginyus and no Kid Buu. Crazy. I mean, only one of them is summonable, and I think all of the Babidi ones are free to play, but it's crazy to see characters that get multiple representations and then no other characters that don't so much. I mean, Kid Buu has obviously has like TURs, but it feels like a real...
that doesn't count.
It feels like a real big thing when you think about all the major villains that have like LRs and everything, and then like even the main, like pretty much all of the main GT villains all have LRs, and then like Kid Buu doesn't have one. It's crazy.
I guess except for Rildo, but
I mean, like the main ones, right? You got like Baby, Super 17, Omega, but like Omega, I mean, there are other Buu EZAs, but no Kid Buu.
Where's my LR Lud, Ningen? Where is my LR?
We've got Mr. Baby's worst nightmare, LR Legend, coming up.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, if that unit ever drops, he's gonna have a field day with.
But shout out to Philip Rodriguez for that one. Socrates with another 5 gifted memberships as well. Appreciate you. And then last but not least, we have another one from Drace, spreading lies and slander through the method of donations, saying W take Chain Battle is goated, Ningen is sad it's going. I can confirm this is 100% inaccurate. I am I'm very happy that Chain Battle's going. I hate it. I've said many times before, I know that the Whis event thing and the steps that they've taken to like replace it on JP haven't been particularly good, But as I've said many times, just because the thing that replaces it is not very good doesn't then make the thing that was replaced retroactively good, right? So no, L take, boo chain battle, but there you go. So yeah, I mean, just think, on Global currently we have chain battle and the World Tournament on at the same time, which is
I was gonna say this is Global's last chain battle, huh?
Yep, this Harudagan one, which is the final one. But yeah, that's all the shout outs and everything for today. Quite a lot of them today, so we do appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
But yeah, that is it.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for all the gifted memberships. I know I was looking there in the chat, and I was like, "Holy moly, that's a lot!" So thank you all so much for that as well. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming by. Obviously, next week we will have some Golden Week shenanigans to discuss. That will be very fun. Finally, all of our funny predictions that we've been throwing back and forth for all this time have been, what do you call it? May come to fruition finally. With that being said, though, we will obviously be catching you in the episode next week. Of course, same time, same place. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter to participate in the trash takes. Yes, also Ningen will be picking the trash take next week because he will be the host for next week. Yes, God Goku mentioned. Thank you. We almost slipped it. Yeah, by the way, that was something interesting, something in chat. I know we were talking about it earlier. I know the man I seriously has popped up on Twitter again, so who knows? Maybe we'll get some leaks and we'll know even before.
By the way, chats, I just want to let y'all know I won't be here for the next podcast episode.
What?
It's probably just going to be Ningen and Theo.
Oh, well, we'll see about that.
Now.
He said, yeah, you ain't going nowhere, buddy.
He's going to keep me from going. Okay.
Good. But anyway, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. We really appreciate it. Yes, of course, Dragon Ball Heroes Agenda. Gotta get all the obligatory mentions out of the way. And by the way, I did want to mention, just because I'm seeing it, I'm gonna throw a shameless plug out real quick before we dip. I do not do my shameless plugs too often.
Oh, I think I know what it is. And we should have actually mentioned that already. Yeah.
That's all right. Yes, I'm sure probably you do. I currently on the channel have a Dokkan OST radio going, a 24/7 stream where you can go over there and listen to Dokkan OSTs. I'll drop a link in the chat because ironically enough, it is literally in my YouTube recommended right here. So if you want to check it out, feel free. It's basically a little experiment that I am running for about a month is kind of the plan. Where I'm basically going to be having this up where, people can just come in and you can just listen to Dokkan OSTs. I recently updated it because you guys gave me feedback that you wanted a couple of changes made to it. Originally, I had the extended 10-minute OSTs there, and not every OST was in the radio, but since you guys wanted it, I changed it up, and now every OST loops 5 times. Because obviously, I can't do it like exactly 5 minutes, because then it would just cut in the middle. So every OST loops 5 times now. So from you guys requesting that, I changed it up, and as well, every OST in the game is on there. So sometimes you can pop in there and hear some stuff. It's been kind of fun, honestly, seeing people, talking in there and checking out some of the old OSTs that they haven't heard in so long. I know I heard like Field A theme, and I was like, whoa, that's a blast from the past. But anyway, just a little shameless plug for you. Thank you guys for your support on that. It's been really fun to see people really enjoying that. So if you want to check it out, feel free. But yes, thank you guys so much. We really, really appreciate it. And with all that being said, I will, and the rest of them, sorry, I almost started doing my own outro. We will catch you guys in the next one. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Peace out.